had conversation with an expert from the Horn of Africa today and see what mischief Al-Shabaab has been up to and what the United Nations is recommending or what they're not too happy about as concerns Al-Shabaab's operations in the region. We're also going to look at, with what we've seen recently in the removal of Kakuzi's products from the retail chains in the UK. It has an effect on very many livelihoods in terms of what they produce. And then taking the conversation even further, where it has been acceptable on the continent for very many countries that young children do work. With global trends, recently it's been that they shouldn't. Does this leave a gap? And we'll take a look at that conversation today as well. So lots to talk about today, lots to think about.
Indeed. So stick around for all that and more. Just as we always begin the show, let's start from tracking the numbers of COVID-19 in the country and the world. So what's happening now?
Okay, so we still continue to see an increase of cases in the country, right? So Kenya yesterday recorded 318 new cases and 10 new deaths. The deaths the day before were at 11. And so those have remained constant. And yesterday we heard from the Ministry of Health, again through CAS Rashid Aman, that they're a bit worried. He said the case of reinfection of COVID-19 patients has been reported in the country. So some who had been healed or cured, rather, then have been reinfected. He ruled out the possibility of imposing herd immunity on Kenyans because of the reports of reinfection. He said due to the novelty of the disease, ongoing epidemiologic studies are yet to prove herd immunity as a workable measure. He addressed the media and he said that, look, we need to be very careful about what's going on. And he said COVID-19 cases around the world are increasing and they're also likely to increase in this country. One thing that he did say was that the government, especially the Ministry of Health, should not shy on taking the decision to close schools if they see the cases of COVID rising again. Rising even more than they did.
So he said there are Kenyans who have gotten reinfected.
Yes.
How many?
He did not give the exact number. He just said that cases of reinfection of COVID-19 patients have been reported in the country. In terms of a number, he did not give this, and he just then went on to talk about herd immunity.
Why is it making it sound like it's just one of those things? I mean, cases of reinfection are not
normal.
Yes.
Yeah. They're not normal. It would have been nice to have a number, and if it's widespread across the country, it's a big deal. Yes, it is.
Even globally, how many countries are directly reporting reinfection? Because I'm seeing like this story here on the page 2 of the Standard today, talking about this person in Nevada, a 25-year-old person who got reinfected, but this time got a more severe strain of COVID.
We mentioned this yesterday, that even in the UK, they've been mentioning this, that people who had previously tested positive and who have, and then tested free of COVID and then were reinfected, they exhibited far more severe symptoms than they previously had. China were among the first countries to actually report this. And they, after opening up their provinces, you remember they went on a second lockdown. And the Chinese lockdown is the standard by which other lockdowns are judged. So that people can get reinfected is something that has been accepted as being normal. It is not something that can be ruled out. Remember, it becomes a point of debate because initially it had been assumed that once you are infected, it is not possible for you to be infected again. Again, alongside that was the thinking of herd immunity. Now, that particular thinking, unfortunately, is slowly being shunted aside.
It is. We also heard from the World Health Organization on Monday, and what they said, and Tedros was very clear that only 10% of the world now had actually developed immunity against SARS, for example. He was giving an example. And that's something
only
that showed up.
Only 10% have been infected so far.
No. only 10% of the global population that developed immunity against the SARS virus, according to World Health estimates, meaning that 90% of the world's population is still susceptible. Right? So he was giving that as an example and saying that if you could carry that across to COVID as well, and say that then it would be careless to then let everybody just basically walk around and get infected, because then you have unnecessary infections, unnecessary suffering, unnecessary death. So if you want to take the same example and apply it to COVID, then it's still necessary for everybody to be as careful as possible and make sure that you don't get it while it's still rampant.
But also remember that even as we talk about reinfection, we have now two pharmaceutical companies, two giants, who've actually halted their vaccine trials for safety reasons. But of interest, there are Eli Lilly, pharmaceutical body, who were working on an antibody treatment. This is the same antibody treatment that President Trump was treated with. It's Johnson & Johnson, and Eli, other pronounced as Eli Lilly, are the ones who've halted it. So, again, we need to remember that when it comes to the pandemic, one could still argue that these are early days yet. The early days in the sense that there is a lot we do not know, and there's a lot we are yet to know. And maybe the problem, as Eric pointed out, is we keep being flooded by all this information all the time. But this is what happens when you're in the information age. How do you put a halt to that information? How do you stop it? Information is what enables people to make, as we call it, informed decisions. So this world that we are in, this COVID-infected world, we can expect more changes, we can expect new findings, we can expect the very, very same pharmaceutical companies telling us that they've sorted out the problem as they had seen it, and that, in fact, they have learned something that will now make whatever product they were trying to put into the market more efficacious. So, again, for this particular COVID terrain, this is to be expected. Yes.
Well, what is sure is that there are now 38,353,846 cases around the world, and now 1,090,756 deaths. 8 million cases now in the United States, 8,090,253, 7,237,082 in India, and still continuing to grow again around the Central American countries. Cases still coming in hot and heavy, and that has not relented in any way, shape, or form. So, still, I mean, it has become the thing that we talk about every day as it's normal. But the truth of the matter is that more and more people are being infected every day. It hasn't let down. Every day, more and more people being infected.
So, I'm thinking, so let's say we get to a situation where everyone who is on this planet has either been tested or has been infected. One would argue then, or one would perhaps seek to understand, is it then that we'll be able to understand the concept of herd immunity better? And will we then be able to understand the full ramifications of this infection better? From a research perspective, the answer is not necessarily. Because there's something we call a sample size. Okay, you can tell the direction a disease is taking. You can tell certain things about the disease, not by necessarily testing each and every person, but randomly selecting people who are representative of age groups, of gender, of communities, of geographical backgrounds. You will have a picture, and that picture is usually fairly accurate.
Are we there yet?
No.
No, far from it.
We're not there yet.
Far from it.
We're not there yet.
Okay. Okay.
You see, as I said, it has to be representative. You can find a country has tested many people, but the people they have tested are one specific group of people in a particular
area.
Yes. That cannot be said to be fully representative.
Okay, we'll continue tracking down the spread of COVID-19, the rush towards getting a vaccine that works, understanding better and better and more of how this COVID is behaving, knowing more about herd immunity, knowing more about how long the COVID virus will stay on the surface and all that as days go by. That's all we can say. 14 minutes after 6, it's a Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. The live stream is up, www.spicefm.co.ke and SpiceFM.ke on YouTube, on Twitter, on Facebook. Harlan Kakai is live from Syokimau. I love the show. And Baby D. Isley, he's got Bay. Bay is in Machakos, well tuned in. And MC Logician Korir live from Bomet. Karibu sana to the show. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room on Spice FM.
When it comes to bridging the information gap to help strengthen the agricultural sector in our country, you can always rely on Farm Kenya to be the glue holding everything together. And now, courtesy of the partnership with Farmster, things couldn't be better. Introducing Farm Kenya platform, and it goes like this. Our SMS service will help farmers upload and publish their products without smartphones, while the Farm Kenya app will allow buyers locate, purchase from, and engage the farmers directly. So if you're a farmer, send a free SMS to 40446 and connect with buyers free for life. That's 40446. If you're a buyer looking for local produce, download the Farm Kenya app from Google Play Store or the Apple Store for free. Remember, ukulima sio shamba pekee. Ukulima ni digital. Ukulima ni Farm Kenya platform.
Kuimarisha Kenya ni jukumu la Farm Kenya.
Brought to you by Farm Kenya and Farmster, working to secure your growth.
In the face of COVID-19, life has been adversely affected, with nearly all schools in Kenya lacking basic hand-washing facilities, affecting more than 19 million children. Together with Davis and Shatliff and True Black, we, the Standard Group, have partnered to collectively unite other corporates and individuals to join the initiative towards setting up basic sanitation facilities around the country. For more information, send an SMS to the short code 40616 or email standwithkenya@standardmedia.co.ke. Time to come together for tomorrow. It's our future. A partnership by Davis and Shatliff and True Black and the Standard Group.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM.
All right, we're looking at partly cloudy conditions in Nairobi today, 16 at the moment, highs of 26 and a chance of rains later on. Njeri will experience showers later with highs of 24 and lows of 14. It's mostly cloudy in Nakuru at 14 degrees, highs of 24 and lows of 12 with a chance of rains later on. It's mostly cloudy in Eldoret at 13, going to highs of 22 and lows of 12 today with thunderstorms in the forecast for the later parts of today. Mostly cloudy conditions in Kisumu at 19, going to highs of 28 with showers expected later. Thunderstorms are in the offing in Kakamega, highs of 26 and lows of 16 today. Light rain showers already happening in Mombasa, 26 degrees, highs of 29 and lows of 24, and that rain is likely to last throughout today, as is in Malindi. Light rain showers at 26, highs of 29 and lows of 25, and it's mostly cloudy in Kampala at 18, highs of 24 with thunderstorms expected later. It looks like it's going to be a wet day in Dar es Salaam, 24 degrees at the moment, going to highs of 30 and lows of 23. Johannesburg is clear skies and sunny conditions at 12 at the moment. It'll go to highs of 25 and lows of 11. Lagos, thunderstorms happening this morning at 29 degrees. This will be the high, coming down to lows of 23. Let's take a look into Beijing, where it's well into the afternoon in the east. 13 degrees at the moment and mostly sunny. And the sun's going to stay out sometime till about 8 p.m. China time, highs of 17 and lows of 4. London experiencing light rain showers at 10 degrees. It'll only go to a high of 14 today, and it's likely to be a cloudy, rainy day with lows of 8. Paris also foggy at 8 degrees, opening up to rain later with highs of 14 and lows of 8. And finally, in New York, it's Tuesday night at 15 degrees, cloudy conditions. The sun will come up and make it just partly cloudy, highs of 16 and lows of 11.
Spice FM. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
20 minutes after 6. The conversation starts now. CT Muga with today's proverb.
If you do not travel, you will marry your own sister. Let me repeat it. If you do not travel, you will marry your own sister. This is a Mozambican saying.
I think it's pretty straightforward. Already pretty straightforward.
Yeah, got to get out more.
And there are very many variations of that. Right?
You need to know your relatives.
Right.
Remember sister in an African setting?
Kutembea kwingi kuona something about.
Yes, exactly. And sister here is cousin even 4 times removed. In an African setting, we don't have a word for cousin. No.
That explains very many things. That's why people call people auntie who are actually not your auntie.
Yes.
Or uncle when they're not your uncle. They're actually your cousin.
It's a Swahili's word, actually very well developed in those ones.
Yes, they
have that.
And the definition in Kiswahili is usually a description. So you cannot miss it. You will understand exactly why it is that way.
Binamu yangu, shangazi yangu, dada yangu, ndugu,
Baba mdogo,
mama mdogo,
Okay.
bamkubwa.
and there's nothing like cousin mdogo.
My sister cousin.
Binamu ni binamu.
Or cousin sister.
Cousin sister. Uncle brother. Okay.
This is my cousin sister. So let's look at the headlines then.
Okay. Well, school fees, education on most of across headlines today. On the front page of The Nation, Jubilee ODM plan to lock out rebels, but let's look at that later. Dropouts. Thousands of children miss school. Thousands of learners countrywide have failed to resume studies after a 7-month break, raising fears of mass dropouts. Education officials and administrators say some girls were either pregnant or were married off during the COVID-19 long break. Boys are involved in various forms of menial labor as others marry or undergo cultural rites of passage. So this is the reason why, according to this, many have not reported to school. It's a concern. A large number of schools in Nyanza, Western, and many parts of the Rift Valley have been hit by floods after lakes and rivers breached their banks. The situation is particularly bad in Nandi County, where 6,000 girls are pregnant. According to the health executive Ruth Koech, some 289 girls aged between 10 and 14 became pregnant between January and September, while another 5,717 aged 15 to 19 got pregnant in the same period. Mgwen Sub-County has 1,522 cases, Tindiret 1,134, Aldai 998, Mosop 947, Nandi Hills 793, and at Chemshe 612. And this is the reason why they've not been able to go back to school. And this is according to Chief Education Administrative Secretary Zach Kenuthia. Last week, county commissioners instructed chiefs and their assistants to collect data of girls who may be pregnant and ensure they return to school. We also heard the cabinet secretary, George Makoha, saying it's all right, let them come to school. When it's time for them to go have their babies, they will go and wean their children, and then we'll allow them to come back to school. So there's fear that there will be mass dropouts because of this. And these officials were collecting this data from Tana River, Kwale, Mombasa, Kilifi, Lamu, Taita Taveta, and also in Western Kenya. All right. So this is what we're seeing just because of that. We'll look at other issues as per why students didn't come back to school, but this seems to be a major issue where a number of girls are pregnant, others were married off, and a number of young boys also took the break to go start doing some kind of manual labor. Others went through rites of passage, and others got married.
In other words, life happened.
Yes.
You know, we keep discussing pregnancies, And we actually don't discuss sex and the education that should accompany it. It's pregnancy, girls pregnant. These young people are having sex. Now, if you take that as a given, what then should you do? Because the pregnancy here, for it to be such a pointed topic, is the issue. So what do you do? The boys don't get pregnant. It's the girls who get pregnant. How do you arm these young people with the knowledge? How do you give them the tool that enables them to be safe from pregnancy?
It's true.
Because also, when you talk about pregnancy, the thing you don't talk about unprotected sex, and you don't talk about the possible diseases that also come with unprotected sex. It's not discussed. And some of these things are harmful in that when they are young, the disease may seem to be a small matter, but some of these STIs can guarantee that you will not have children when you then want to have children.
And something has just struck me. I mean, it would sound obvious, but I mean, if you say it out loud, then it starts to make sense. Is that by virtue of the fact that these girls are getting pregnant, it means that they're having unprotected sex.
Yes, they are.
Yeah. So you have to look at the danger of a lot of these sexually transmitted infections and diseases that come with the territory. Very important.
We talk about HIV in the past tense as though it doesn't exist. It still exists. And the problems around HIV are the same as before. We may have reduced the elements of stigma, but HIV will have the same ramifications on your body as it did previously. It hasn't mutated to the point where it's like a common cold. It isn't. So, some of these tools are tools that can be provided even within the education sector, if only we took them seriously. Remember, most schools, when you talk to them, will tell you they have someone who's in charge of guidance and counseling. One person for the whole school. One. It tells you how they think, the importance.
Importance is being placed on it.
Yes, it clearly indicates to you. I would assume, actually, for this to be taken seriously, that one of the requirements of employing teachers is that they should have some basic, even a certificate training in counseling, so that every class, when you're trained as a teacher, you are taught psychology. You're trained in psychology for all the 3 years that you study. But the truth is, there is need for specific counseling. For instance, substance abuse counseling. Young people get into drugs. Parents usually have no clue what to do. None whatsoever.
Yeah.
Except condemn it. Same with pregnancy. There's a pregnancy, most parents don't know what to, beyond condemning it, they really don't know what to do. Or beyond seeking a termination of that pregnancy. So, the place where children spend most of their time during school time, in fact, in their lives when they're in school, is school.
It's school.
So, shouldn't there be a little more attention being paid to the training of ensuring that those who actually afford these students an education also have training that will enable them to guide these young people in ways that would guarantee that their futures are bright, as opposed to this now? Because in the absence of that knowledge, you know what we've done? We've condemned these people.
Absolutely. And you know, the thing is, unfortunately, had these young girls not gotten pregnant in the numbers that we are seeing, the attention that's being given to this whole system now would never have seen the light of day. It wouldn't have happened. It wouldn't have happened. And even now, it's not that, unfortunately, not that anything major is being done. It's just that, all right, let them go have their children and come back to school. That's the best. That's being
That
preferred.
one is forward movement, because previously, if you got pregnant, that's
You're done.
it.
You're done.
Done. Finished. Dust it.
It's all very well and good, to have the progressive thought. But if you just look at whenever the issue of sex, unprotected sex, children and sex comes up as a topic, the kind of pushback that you get from the society. So it's one of those where the society something will need to happen for the society then to change the mindset and the attitudes towards sex and towards having conversations on sex, especially when it comes to children. Look at that bill by Susan Keheka. The kind of, pushback that it's gotten. 2010, when the church was pushing back against the constitution, one of the things that they had an issue with was about pregnancies and sex. So when we talk about, yes, it's very important that we have, a plan in which during these 16 years of basic education for children, they are also taught about sex. The pushback does not even come from the children or the teachers. It comes from everybody else. The religious organizations, political leaders who are basically mirroring the sentiments of the population, the general population. There's something that that conversation needs either the government takes a strong stand on it and decides, you know what, this is the direction we're taking, and damn you all for whatever you think, or then the government holds those conversations around the country to bring everybody on board. It will not bear fruit in 5 or 10 years. It will be a conversation that pushes a couple of steps back, a couple of steps forward, just like the gender debate.
There's a stronger narrative, I think, that takes center stage whenever we have these discussions. If we say that we would like this discussion to be pivoted on the policies of the Ministry of Education, the narrative that will come and overtake it is one simple narrative of finances. What we hear is the absence of it or the inadequate supply of it. But what we all know is actually the misuse of it, the misappropriation of it. Yeah. Because there is no single day when there'll be enough money for everything we want to do. It won't happen. But if what we have isn't utilized in the best manner possible, then all these things simply become a point of discussion, something we talk about and we revisit in our discussion. Because even when money is given for these things, somehow that money never, ever gets to do what it is supposed to do. Never, ever. So essentially what we're saying is this, and this is something that perhaps the leadership doesn't seem to understand. This future they like talking about is not something that is yet to happen. It's happening now. That future, it's happening now. The consequences of these decisions that are made, or the lack of decisions that are made, we talk about far-reaching consequences.
This is it.
My friend, it's not going to happen. It is happening. It is with us. The reason why things took as much time as they did was because information wasn't readily available quickly and promptly. Nowadays, information is, my friend, you blink, new information has come in. You blink, more information. And the widespread nature of the availability of information. Everybody is informed in one way or the other. And you know what, in this country, they're even informed in their languages. So if they don't need to understand Kiswahili or English, they are informed.
Yep.
So if one is talking about the future, and one thinks that the future will not find them when they're alive, it'll get you when you're alive and well.
You're in the future.
My friend, you know what struck me? There is... America is, among other things, apart from generally gearing and fast-forwarding the movement towards an election, they lost a Supreme Court justice. Okay? The lady passed away, and now they're in the process of trying to get a new justice of the Supreme Court. Now, this justice is proving to be interesting in the sense that the justice is a Republican nominee. They expect there's a criteria they look for. But what is proving tricky about this particular justice is this. This particular justice, she's called Amy Coney Barrett. She's a conservative. She's Christian.
Staunch Catholic.
But belongs to a certain sect within the religious fraternity that is called the Happy Movement. Okay? Now, the Happy Movement is a product of the 1960s and 70s hippie movement, when people got into Christianity to move away from drugs and what have you. So their views are not necessarily mainstream. And it's turning out that every time she's asked questions on abortion, same-sex marriages, she doesn't respond. it struck me and I said, goodness gracious me. When the hippie movement began in the 60s, I said, let me go further back. When the Vietnam War and the Cambodian wars were being fought, did they understand that it would come to a point in the history of this particular country where the election of a Supreme Court justice was going to be determined by the actions that they took? Then. But then I realized something more importantly. That same country, there's a debate that has arisen. And that debate is, this constitution that we have, it's a bit old. Isn't it about time we looked at it again?
Revamped everything.
So in that respect, we are ahead. As we looked at ours, we said, folks, what we have is not quite working for us. Let's get a new one.
Let's get a new one.
Now.
And we're having the same conversation again. 26 minutes to 7. Let's take a break, see what's happening on the roads, and then we look at other headlines. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room. Kenchege Makaveli Chinjaua. He says, not all storms come to destroy your life. Some come to clean your path. Wayakiwe is locked. Very good, wise words this morning. Kenchege Makaveli Chinjaua. Titus Ombeta is in Kisii, tuned in. Charity Maina is in Nakuru, tuned in. And Laban Kaptei Tanui is tuned. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the show.
It's the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Spice FM, Malindi.
Okay, what are we looking at this morning, guys? Mombasa Road is not doing too badly at the moment until you get to the Weighbridge, Ambulalongo. So, okay, I gave you some good news for, jam it up, and that's exactly what's going on. Starting to slow down, really, from the SGR all the way to the turn-off at JKA, and then further ahead, as you get towards Cabanas and then out towards General Motors, it's quite slow this morning. Bumper-to-bumper situation, moving very slowly this morning off of Mombasa Road. Getting yourself to the city centre, if you hadn't left about an hour ago, you probably have to experience this traffic for some time, okay? Thika Road is not the way it was yesterday at the moment. It's looking pretty good. Getting into the CBD also not so bad, guys, but we'll see in about half hour. Round about 7 is if you're going to be stuck there for a while, or if you can get out with a few bruises in terms of how traffic is concerned. Okay, getting into the CBD then from Langata Road, getting in from Gong Road, and also from Westlands, also at the moment not proving to be too difficult. Jogo Road, however, is starting to build up. Traffic then towards the City Stadium roundabout and then into the CBD or towards industrial area. So for now, it's, still moving and not too badly around most parts of the city. We'll take a look into Kisumu and Mombasa later, but for now, this is what it looks like. Tell us where you might be stuck. If you are, 40127 is a text line, or tweet us, SpiceFMKE.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
It's now 23 minutes to 7. Let's see other headlines in the papers. What do you have, CT?
Right. Let me go to the Daily Business, which is actually called the Business Daily. Okay. Hey.
Okay.
Hey. And sometimes you look at the headlines of these papers and you wonder. All right.
Wonder no more.
Well, okay. Treasury disburses 52 billion to counties for July and August. Yeah. Counties yesterday received. This is what caught my attention. We need to confirm that they actually received this money. All right.
The money was disbursed.
All right. We need to confirm it was disbursed. The first disbursement for the year to next June, ending a cash crunch that threatened to grind service delivery to a halt. Now, this is good news. Prior to the disbursement, prior to services threatening to grind to a halt, in some places actually grinding to a halt, in some places county bosses actually telling their people not to go to work. Literally all our counties had issues that were unresolved. And these unresolved issues all revolved around money. Okay? So now we have given counties more money because of the pressure that we were under, and the issues that had not been resolved regarding accountability are still unresolved. When are you going to resolve them? Because they are piling. It's not as though last year's problem is the only problem. Some of these problems go back to 2014, 2015, 2013. Or let's take it, some of them go back to 2017. That is in the recent past. But now that the money has been given, I would like to hear what the counties will now have to say regarding service delivery.
You'll hear something, because one thing that is very clear, you've said it was the money for July and August.
Yes.
We are in October.
Yes.
September money.
Where is September money? Where is October money? So what are we talking about? What's going to happen? Because remember, there are salary arrears, so this money is coming to pay salaries. There was some development that was supposed to have happened. Maybe it didn't happen. Maybe some of that money was used to meet some other running costs. So is it enough? The Senate, when it looked at the disbursement schedule and it approved that disbursement schedule, it had said, so for the first the first tranche of money that was going to go to the counties was supposed to be 79.12 billion shillings. But the Treasury released 52.2 billion shillings. So there's some 26, 27 or so billion that was not disbursed. Now, if this is going to sort out the first 2 months of the financial year, we're in the fourth month of the financial year, what impact is that going to have? So as we wait to hear what the counties then will tell us what they're doing with the money, we'll also want to hear how they are juggling this, because it's about juggling. You have salaries to pay at the end of this month. The money that you've received was for running operations for the first 2 months of the financial year. You have salaries arrears for 3 months. You are going into another end month. What's going to happen?
What I find interesting is, in the past, when there have been slight delays, one of the things that has come out after the money has been disbursed is that certain debts that were owed to vendors were then paid.
First.
Yes, but not in the order that you would expect. Remember, we had a time the previous year when development projects were halted.
Yep.
The understanding was to clear the debts that were owed to people who had done work in the previous years.
Yep.
To date, I am not certain that all those debts have been paid. I'm not certain.
Yep.
There is no evidence that I have come across that indicates that it has been paid. Now, that the need to juggle, as Eric puts it, in my opinion, is of paramount importance, because this resource is finite. It's not as though you're being told, please hurry up and spend this 52 billion so that you can
get more.
Another 52 billion. No, that's not the story here. You know you have a problem and you know what is important. What is it that the county governments have come up with to plan with the reality of COVID in mind? Because the complaints, as I hear them, are complaints that are based on what life was before COVID.
Yeah. And it cuts across the government, because if you look at the budget of the government, it did not really change because of COVID.
No.
So this is what we're talking about. We have seemingly a cash crunch. That's one of the reasons why the National Treasury is not able to disburse the 79 billion shillings that it was supposed to have disbursed. They are short of money. Now, there are people to be paid salaries. They didn't take pay cuts. You have things to do on a regular basis. I mean, you've got markets to clean. You've got
Operational costs. Yeah.
These have to be met. And even if we don't talk about development, we are talking about just meeting those basic services that you need to deliver to your people. Then now, you are a government. People expect you to come up with some development projects. You had promised you're going to, in the next financial year, maybe complete this road. In the next financial year, you're going to put up this bridge. In the next financial year, you're going to help to revamp a certain part of the local county economy. You cannot do that because you don't have money. So is it about time that we actually have this conversation as a country and said, this is where we are. We don't have cash, or the cash that we're able to generate is not coming in the way we want it to come in. So we cannot really get into any development. The developments that we had started, we cannot even continue with them. We cannot complete them because
We don't have the money.
what's the point of starting a project that you had already, okay, you had started a project in the last financial year, you stopped at some point in February, you have not had money since then, you don't have money now, so you're looking at maybe restarting this project at some point in June next year, and it's not clear to the people the reason why you're not continuing with these projects.
It can't work like this. It can't continue to work like this because this is now where it now starts to blend into the issues that we spoke about yesterday, where the debt continues to balloon, people continue to suffer without having an honest and open conversation. Because what is it?
Yep.
What is it?
And bear in mind, some of this money, as it goes to the counties had borrowed
And
from
now they have to pay.
financial institutions to meet some of those needs. It goes straight into paying those debts.
Because usually the people they borrowed from the people they have accounts with.
Yep,
So it comes in.
It goes out.
it goes.
But of significant interest, in my opinion, is this. Even as we talk of this debate that we genuinely must have, I mean, in all honesty, do these people with whom we share a country, our leaders, because we actually share this country with them, do they really sit, pause, think, plan, understand the consequences? Because when you talk about the budget that we had,
Yep.
that budget, the national budget, it, in all honesty, did not really take COVID seriously. It didn't. The seriousness that was required to change our thinking and to change everything that we do. Development projects. Look, it is nice to build a road.
Yeah.
These roads are good things. Economically, and those who study economics will tell you that infrastructure is one of the fundamental pillars of development.
Yeah.
Yeah, but is it the most crucial thing now? The road, it's not that the road didn't exist. We're just making it bigger, better, and spending more money. Surely, are we not allowed to divert this money that we're supposed to build roads with to other things that
To do something.
which we may think maybe should we say impact directly the people's lives? Yes. Because from what I see, everyone's, all talk about COVID, the government has gone into another project, and you're thinking, hey, folks,
We're all seeing the same thing.
the
Are we
projects
together here?
Yeah,
Yeah.
as in, are we on the
Folks
same
are
page?
they-
We're not
they-
even in the same book. Heck, we're not even in the same library.
The
Yeah.
projects are wonderful, yeah. They actually wonderful. But now, is this really the time to do these things now?
So, as we look at those, speaking of losses,
We'll take a break.
I was just going to ask you the way you're looking at me.
13 minutes to 7. Let's take a break. And as we go into this break, let's remind you about the new Gold Crown lactose-free milk from the new KCC. They've come up with this brilliant product to address the needs of a sizable population of this country who are lactose intolerant. Okay, so you take milk and then you start experiencing some discomfort in your tummy because you're lactose intolerant. Now you can actually go and buy this Gold Crown lactose-free milk and you will be able to take milk and you'll be fine. In the next couple of hours, we'll be giving you a question that you'll respond on our social media handles and you will how many people are we? 2 people are going to win a new KCC hamper. So keep it right here for that and more. Good morning. 13 minutes to 7.
"24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Mimi siwezi kunywa chai kama haina maziwa. Hiyo si chai hata. So when it started giving me stomach problems, nilijikaza tu. But my wife realized I was struggling and decided to get me some alternatives. My friend, I tried all those plant-based substitutes. Name them. Let me tell you, there is nothing that tastes as good as real cow's milk. So when I heard Gold Crown has lactose-free version of the real thing, I had to try. I was amazed. It is real cow's milk, kweli kweli, but without any of the discomfort. Asante Gold Crown.
Try Gold Crown lactose-free milk today to enjoy the richness of all-natural milk without the discomfort of indigestion. 100% cow's milk, 100% lactose-free. Easy to digest.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
All right.
94 point.
So
Now is your turn.
thank you. Over 300,000 avocado outgrowers worried as Kakuzi loses key market. Smallholder avocado farmers in Mount Kenya are staring at uncertain times after the UK supermarket Tesco cut off links with Kakuzi Limited, which has contracted at least 3,000 outgrowers, right? So here's a direct impact of one action on 3,000 others. Tesco, one of the UK's largest supermarket stores, has stopped the business with the Kenyan avocado exporter based in Murang'a County over claims of human rights abuse filed in court. Kakuzi has been sued by 79 former employees. Esther Nyambura, an avocado farmer, is now apprehensive that the prices of the fruits will dip following the closure of the market. This comes at a time many counties in Central Region have been popularizing growing of the only fruit with an eye on the recently opened lucrative Chinese market. In the last 20 years, I have partnered with Kakuzi. I have gained much through the timely payments for my produce, according to Nyambura. The harvesting season is between March and August, with farmers dealing directly with the company and earning thousands of shillings for deliveries. So now most of the 3,000 Kakuzi outgrowers establish partnerships with other smaller farmers from whom they buy at slightly lower prices. The smallholder farmers are not able to deliver on their own to Kakuzi's packaging house in Makuyu town. So now it's a sticky issue because now you have 300,000 outgrowers worried in terms of what are they going to do, where they're going to take their harvest to. Whereas this company has been taking everything from them and paying them on time. And now with the court case, they don't know where they're going to take their produce.
This is where the discussion of diversification comes in. Because if any business person will tell you that it is important to have a main client, yes. But if you're particularly reliant on one client, yes, there may be benefits, but the dangers will also equal those benefits.
Yeah.
Yes. Because you're talking about a product that is also subject to the vagaries of Mother Nature.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything could happen. Anything. Now, they say the Chinese market is a growing market. I'm sure there are other markets that are also growing. This was certainly a market that they could rely on because the factory is nearby. It makes for ease of business. But
In fact, the UK is not even Kenya's largest market for avocados.
No.
There are others, and when we see, I mean, it's unfortunate because this is a direct market that they already had. X number of units to deliver, and therefore they knew that this is coming. So look for our outgrowers. The outgrowers look for the smallholder farmers. I mean, that chain was working very well, the entire value chain. Now that value chain has been disrupted. Obviously, it's going to take a while before even another one is established. So those that have been contracted by Kakuzi to supply, if you're told, all right, now we have to cancel this contract, you can't just walk into the next person and say, now I can deliver to you, because that one already had an established value chain and supply. So it's a disruption. Yes, it's going to have some. It may have some impact here and there, but also I'm seeing the other side of the conversation that is unfolding over this one case. So story comes out next, biggest supermarket does this next. We are seeing now the impact of this, what this is going to have. It's a very well woven story.
Think, for instance, let's look at tea. Tea for the longest time has been considered the go-to product guaranteed to make you money.
Yep.
But one of the things that was not considered, especially with the hindsight of understanding coffee, was that for the longest time, one of the world's chief producers of tea, Sri Lanka, was at a war, civil war, 25-year war. So during this war period, they were not producing tea. So it meant the other big producers, Kenya, let's start with my own country, India, China. They had the market to themselves. And remember, when you talk of India and you talk of China, they consume most of what they produce themselves. Okay, so Kenya had a field day. Value chain, Kenyan farmers had a field day. Sri Lanka is back producing tea. What do you think is going to happen? There'll be more tea than maybe than the market will require. So what happens is the prices will automatically go down.
Right.
Now, farmers will want to know why the prices are going down. What do you mean? It has to be something to do with maybe the MD of KTDA or something of that sort. Some of these things, if you look at them closely, you will find that what's affecting what you anticipated has nothing to do with the person who's at the helm. They have no control over it at all. None whatsoever.
But they had a game plan to play. At that time, they had the opportunity to take advantage of the absence of this major player to entrench their market, to improve. One of the things that makes our tea and our coffee expensive is because of the cost of production. So we have all these opportunities to ensure that for example, our coffee is cheaper. Our coffee is the most expensive from this region. Uganda's coffee is very cheap in the
Ethiopia.
market.
Rwanda's coffee.
Rwanda's coffee is very cheap. Rwanda has even gone and developed, and now they actually have specialty coffee. Their market is clear. They're producing a niche product for a niche market. Kenya, we are still back up and down, round and round.
We're still groping in the dark.
Yes. And yet we have the opportunity. We've had the opportunity for the longest to do this.
And not once, not
We
twice. We've had it
only
many
are
times.
less than 1% of the global production of coffee. With all this noise that we make about coffee in this country. Less than a percentage. So what is this that we talk about, all the time? I was talking about avocados. I was actually looking for the figures. Kenya is the 7th largest avocado exporter. And our key markets are the Netherlands, France, Spain, the UAE, Russia. So UK comes down the road. So there are very many other opportunities that still would benefit the smallholder farmers and the other outgrowers. But the point is, if you had a market like this and it's disrupted, even if the cake is still big.
Yeah. Because,
Be-
I mean, look,
before you
it
adjust.
was assured market. It
Yeah.
was assured income. And this is one of the things that we're looking at here. It was not a story of deliver, come tomorrow. Deliver, you're paid. So for these outgrowers and even for the smallholder farmers, you knew that was guaranteed income that came from that particular place. So that's cut off. Then, what are you going to do? And then for you to start finding market for a harvest that is already ready, there's a problem.
There's an organization in this country called the Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah.
Among the many things it's supposed to do, this is one of them. All right, to ensure that business people take advantage of the opportunities that are open to them across the globe.
Yeah.
And also to prepare them and to explain, and so that they understand how these things work. Okay, but alongside the thinking that we often see when it comes to decision making at even the national level, the so-called mwananchi and his interests are whatever interest they have at best is often given lip service. Or those who are in charge, they seem to take a leaf from that book, of those organizations at the basic level do the same thing. They don't even look after the interests of their members.
They don't.
They make decisions that make you, every time you read it, you wonder, what on earth were they thinking?
It is a lot of either personal interest or a lot of just sleeping on the job for some of these things. You can see, for example, the way avocado has become such a lucrative product in the Kenyan market. Why? Because people just saw it. It's possible for me to just grow avocado. It doesn't require much. Grow them. What's the best type of avocado? This is Hass. All right, get the Hass avocado. Come in, people like Governor Mwangi area and pushing and promoting avocado. And people in Murang'a doing that and getting easy market. It's really possible for them to even pivot out of this. But very many interests then come in. We'll discuss more about this in the coming hours. But now we want to cross over to Somalia and look at this terror group, Al-Shabaab. Kumbe, these guys are loaded. They have cash in banks, they have cash in real estate, and we want to see that. There's a report that's been released by the UN, and we'll be discussing that shortly with a Horn of Africa analyst, Rashid Abdi, who will be joining us on the line. Good morning. This is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation in the next 2 hours as well. We will be live on KTN Home, and we continue to be live on Spice FM KE, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, and www.spicefm.co.ke. It's now 7 o'clock.
Sugar and spice and everything I spice it.
spice up your life. Spice FM, Nakuru.
Okay, guys, we need to look out for the traffic on Mombasa Road this morning. It seems to be something we're going to talk about every day, but that's where we see there's a lot of traffic on Mombasa Road. It's heading all the way from the SGR and even before that, rather, and then beyond through to Cabanas and even thereafter. General Motors, there's a stretch after General Motors where it won't be too painful. But then after that, Bellevue all the way to the Nyayo Stadium roundabout and then onto Huru Highway through to the CBD and even further ahead to Westlands. It's bumper to bumper, moving slowly and then bumper to bumper again. There's some traffic that we're seeing this morning and it's quite heavy. Thika Road also is what we see. Not too bad. As you get to the Magani underpass, trying to get into the CBD, you get stuck right around Ngara as you approach the Globe Cinema overpass. There's some traffic there. Apart from that, those two hot and heavy areas that we see, it's not too bad. The eastern and southern bypasses are free and clear, as is Ngong Road. A little bit of traffic on Langata Road, but we'll take a look at this as it unfolds in the next half hour or so. Some information that we could use, Spice FM KE on Twitter or text us on 40127. Let's keep it moving this Wednesday morning.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Nduh Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room.
Minutes after 7. Thank you very much for tuning into The Situation Room right here on Spice FM. Nairobi 94.4, Mombasa 87.9, 102.5 in Kisumu, Nakuru 96.0, 96.7 in Eldoret, Njeri 90.9 and Malindi 97.7. For the next 2 hours, we are now live on KTN Home as well. And we are on www.spicefm.co.ke and Spice FM KE, live streaming on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter. As we begin the hour, C.T. Muga, remind us today's proverb.
Yes, as you correctly put it, it is really very simple and straightforward. But like most proverbs, that's what it appears to be. If you do not travel, you will marry your own sister.
If you do not travel, you'll marry your own sister.
Yes.
Okay. Tembea.
One.
Tembea uone. Okay. So let's move a conversation now and talk about the Al-Shabaab terror group. So there's a new report that has been released by the UN and it has not yet been made public, but the New York Times has published a story about it because they have seen the report. And it's about how the Al-Shabaab has been able to exploit the Somali banking system and even invest in real estate. What they've done is they've been able to really move in some good cash because of how they collect the money. They charge levies from business people, for businesses. They're the ones that charge levies for business and other ways of generating revenue. According to this report, just between December 2019 and August this year, they had raised $13 million in revenue. Now, there are very many embargoes and sanctions imposed on the Al-Shabaab terror group, which is linked to Al-Qaeda by the UN Security Council, that would then see the terror group not being able to either move the cash out of the country, move the cash around through the regulated financial system. But apparently, they have found ways of doing this. And through the banking system, just looking at the bank accounts that are linked to Al-Shabaab, and, they are able to bring in money through various organizations, about $3 million in the banking system through the Al-Shabaab. So they have cash, they're able to exploit this, they're able to run their operations. They're able then to even go around the sanctions that have been placed by the international bodies. What does this mean? What does it say?
It's very clear they're acting, and they probably are, an entity unto their own, answering to nobody, under no authority whatsoever, doing whatever it is that they please, with sanctions or no sanctions. They're operating. They've not been shut down, not been taken out, and everybody's well aware in the manner in which they operate. And this UN report that says that they continue to do this is not news. It just happens to be that they've been able to collate this information and are putting it out there for public consumption. But the fact that they are clearly a well-financed, well-organized group in terms of how they operate, that's been very clear for a long time.
Yeah.
And it is also clear now that these funds that they collect are not just for any kind of terrorist activities. They are putting this money into sectors that would be seen to be quite lucrative. Real estate has come out as a result of this.
By the time a group of individuals get to even levy tax, you have to ask, what is this service that they provide, or what is viewed as a service that they provide that makes it possible for people to feel that it is in their interest to actually pay these
pay the tax.
These taxes.
Yeah.
In some, maybe it could be people thinking it's in their interest. Maybe they're providing a service. In others, it's force. You are basically blackmailed, and you're told, you're pushed in a corner. So when they operate, for example, within a port, and they say every import, you must pay a certain levy.
All right.
Or going around and saying, so there's this particular arm that a Muslim is supposed to give in a year, and they say, this is where you give it to.
Somalia has a government, does
it
not?
Yep.
Okay. Now, this argument bears weight because we assume the government is also doing the same, or the so-called elected government. So then you could argue that when you have a group of people functioning or have the same functions as any government in the world would have, that they themselves are a government.
Yep.
And even as we say that they force people, it appears to me that if they've existed for as long as they have, they must have people who support them, and they must have followers.
True. Let's bring in somebody who understands the issues of Somalia and the entire Horn of Africa. This is Rashid Abdi, who's joining us on the line. Good morning, Rashid.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for inviting me.
It's good to have you on the show, and welcome to the Situation Room.
Thank you very much.
Now, Rashid, looking at this report by the New York Times and understanding what's been happening with Al-Shabaab over the very many years, does this story or the report from the UN make any sense to you? Does it sound believable from somebody who understands the region?
I think the report will only come as a surprise to people who haven't followed Somalia, even from afar. But everyone knows that Al-Shabaab has become a much more entrenched insurgency, although the territory which it controls is now much more diminished because of action by AMISOM troops, which include Kenyan troops. Still, Al-Shabaab, I think, has become a much more resilient rural insurgency. But apart from that, I think we have seen also how Al-Shabaab has begun to grow as a welfare state, where they collect taxes or zakat and then distribute it among the poor. We also know that Al-Shabaab's courts have become very effective in really dispensing very swift justice for land disputes, for marital disputes. So people rely on it because largely the state is absent. And I think, as one of your panelists just minutes ago said, Al-Shabaab basically is exploiting the absence of state and has become actually a state, a shadow state of its own. And this state now, collects taxes, dispenses justice, conducts law and order, operations in southern Somalia. So we are now talking essentially of a state within a state.
And Abdi, is this, even as we look at this, is it accepted or is it feared that Somalis will pay this tax because they realize that this is what is here to stay in the absence of government, or because they have been coerced to do so?
Yeah, I think there are two ways of looking at it. Al-Shabaab uses, I think, a variety of ways for basically making itself legitimate or credible in the eyes of the public. So they definitely offer some services which include law and order. And so for that reason, probably people will not feel compelled to give Al-Shabaab taxes. Then there is also, I think, definitely a criminal and predatory element to Al-Shabaab's taxation. And we see that in especially in rural areas where they go to farmers and then tell them, we need you to pay us this amount of money. And then we also see also a similar pattern where they also extort money from business people. So there is a predatory criminal element to this, which we should not lose sight of. But I think to say Al-Shabaab's tax regime is completely predatory, I think also is wrong. There are people who are willingly giving Al-Shabaab money because they feel that Al-Shabaab offers them protection, gives them justice, and so on and so forth. So that is how I will characterize it. It's a mix of persuasion, but also includes predation as well.
What you've described, is it the reality that has metamorphosized with time, or is this the way Al-Shabaab was always seen by the people of Somalia? Yeah.
I think Al-Shabaab, the way to look at Al-Shabaab is that it has evolved over time. Remember, it started as a small insurgency which was fighting the Ethiopians. Then progressively, it actually became an insurgency that controls territory. So they became administrators, and so that exerted, I think, pressure on the movement. They had to be seen to be, responding to people's need for security, people's need for, a judicial system, people's need for some form of basic services. And this is why I think Al-Shabaab has proven itself to be a much more responsive entity in South Central Somalia than the state. And that is where it derives its legitimacy, and that is where it derives the support it has from the public. The fact that Al-Shabaab officers are more cleaner, less corrupt than the state, also I think has created this huge support which they have in South Central Somalia. So I think it is an evolution. The more Al-Shabaab the more government has become weaker, more corrupt, more dysfunctional, the more Al-Shabaab has grown in strength. And we see this dynamic, I think, in many contexts, especially Afghanistan.
Why has the government become what you've just described?
This is I think, partly to do with the fact that you have an internationally led process where I think a lot of money is coming in. You have people who are not committed to the government, who have families abroad, who basically are there to get as much money as they want in a very short period of time and then go back. So I think you have a very dysfunctional state, very weak institutions, and also a lot of money coming in, largely for state building, peace building. And that, I think, has created a very corrupt environment in which Somalia is listed as among the most corrupt countries in the world. It has always been number one in the last 10 years. And that clearly tells you a lot. It tells you why Al-Shabaab is growing in strength. It's because people are completely fed up with, I think, a very dysfunctional state, which always hasn't gone far in achieving all the goals which it set for itself.
So in a sense, we could actually say that the government's failure is what has probably largely contributed to Al-Shabaab's success.
Absolutely. That is, I couldn't have put it better.
Okay. Now let me ask a different question. There is Al-Shabaab is what we know the organization as, but the full name is Haraka Al-Shabaab Mujahideen. What on earth does that mean?
That means the movement. Haraka in Arabic is movement. Mujahideen is those who struggle on the path of jihad. So this is the jihad movement. That is how they call themselves.
Why I ask for that definition is because when you describe what Al-Shabaab is doing and then you describe the government in Somalia, you are more or less describing almost every government on this continent and in certain parts of the world, because people are taxed, but the one thing that people do not see is what their tax money is doing. That is a constant and consistent complaint. The fundamental difference is that Al-Shabaab seems to be providing what you call an opposition government. The only difference is that they are armed, and that they are not afraid to confront people with, should we say, with a little warfare. Now, you've said that they are losing territory because of the troops that are the AMISOM troops. What do you think would happen if the AMISOM troops withdrew?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. There's no doubt that the moment the African troops leave Somalia, it wouldn't take Al-Shabaab hours to basically take control of Somalia, entire Somalia. And that is the sad reality, that the only bulwark against Al-Shabaab taking over the state, or the only barrier, is actually the AMISOM troops. And this is the reality, and I can't see how in the short to medium term AMISOM would leave Somalia. There is a process now underway. They are talking about an exit strategy, but I think we are a long way away from AMISOM exiting Somalia, largely because Al-Shabaab is still very strong. Despite the fact that it has been squeezed and moved out of many towns and villages, I think it still retains very active combatants. It has also, by the way, survived a very relentless campaign of drone strikes by the United States. But still, it retains military capability. And the day AMISOM leaves, basically they will roll in back into the towns and villages and take control.
It would seem that they still are, even with AMISOM's presence in Somali, that they still do have the control, whether it wants to be seen on the surface or even deeper. It seems that the control is there, and that whatever peace or outside control is just temporary and makeshift in some way. What is the intent of government? Really, What is the mandate of government for the country? Because it would seem, looking from the outside looking in, that it's just puppetry of sorts to say that there is a government without the practice of government in the country, especially when we look at the face of Al-Shabaab. What really is the purpose at this point?
That is a good point, and I think the history of the Somali government in the last 20 years has been extremely disappointing. We had a long period of transition. Now we have a permanent government of sorts, but in reality it is a transition within a transition. Many of the tasks which were set for the government to become functional have not been achieved. Just weeks ago there was a serious electoral crisis in which the whole electoral system basically broke down. And so it's a government which has been latching from one crisis to another. And I think this dysfunction, this deep malaise within the state structures and institutions is what has given, it's the oxygen which gives Al-Shabaab basically, allows Al-Shabaab to survive and also to thrive.
As I hear this, Rashid, I'm sensing some sense of contradiction in a way, in terms of the progress that has been made, whether it's positive progress or whether it's negative progress. Just looking back at what you've just described as the move to have some semblance of government in place. We've come from a system where there was no government, it was just warlords running the country, into the Islamic Courts Union, into the transition of federal government, into now this government with wide international support. And we have also seen the emergence of these militias, like now the Al-Shabaab, and the serious pushback that it has received from internationally backed armies. There is the AMISOM troops, there is the support that they get from the drone strikes with the US government, and you even said that it has been losing ground. So how is it then that we have, on the one hand, some semblance of government coming and taking control of the country, and Al-Shabaab losing ground, but at the same time, Al-Shabaab appearing to be gaining some clout in the country? How is that possible with those two?
Yeah. Yes, I think that's a good question. I would probably answer it in this way. First of all, the government physical control is very minimal. It doesn't control any city beyond Mogadishu. The other federal states also control, with the exception probably of Puntland. Every federal state also, has that same problem where they don't control beyond the cities. They do not control the rural countries, the countryside. Mm-hmm. So, if you look, because Somalia is a huge country. If you look at the map, probably you would say something like 40 to 50% of the country is still in Al-Shabaab hands. And so, just looking at that reality is significant, because it means the government cannot extend itself, cannot extend its reach beyond these major cities. And so Al-Shabaab is able to basically put down roots in some of these rural places. It basically has a captive community and population. But then also it feeds off the weakness of the state. This is a state which is extremely weak and thoroughly corrupt. And so let me just give you an example. Land disputes are very frequent in Mogadishu. So people constantly fight over land, and I think Kenyans recognize that reality. So people fight over land, and land disputes, land cases have become very, very problematic. Now, the government's judicial system is extremely weak, is unable to cope with this demand for justice over land. So what some people do is basically just walk something like 20 to 30 kilometers out of the city and go to the jungle and meet Al-Shabaab's, justice or basically lawyers and sheikhs, and tell them that this is the land crisis we have. Mm-hmm. And so many litigants are actually happy to take their cases to Al-Shabaab to get a quick and swift resolution. And remember, when Al-Shabaab court basically passes a verdict, that verdict will be enforced even by blood. Mm. So when Al-Shabaab court basically says that, Eric, you have to deliver, you have to give back the land because it doesn't belong to you, Eric will definitely give back that land, because if he fails, Eric gets killed. Mm-hmm. And so that swift but brutal justice is extremely effective, and many people actually find it easy to deal with Al-Shabaab and the state. And so I think that in a nutshell, it is the state's weakness and inability to actually respond to some of these very acute needs of society that makes Al-Shabaab relevant.
Time for us to take a break and then continue this conversation. On the line with us this morning is Rashid Abdi. He is a Horn of Africa analyst, helping us to unravel a new report by the United Nations that says that Al-Shabaab is exploiting Somali banking and investing in real estate. It's making a lot of money. Just between December and August this year, Al-Shabaab was able to raise revenues of up to 13 million US dollars. About 3 million of that has entered the financial system. This is despite international sanctions imposed by the UN. And we're trying to understand what is it that Al-Shabaab then is able to do in that country. What is the role of the government, the internationally supported government, in fighting Al-Shabaab? As we take this break, we'll come back and continue with this conversation. This is a Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation on Spice FM, on KATN, home and online, 25 minutes after 7.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise.
You're listening to Spice
Okay,
FM.
Nairobi is still partly cloudy. Highs of 26 and lows of 14 today, and a chance of rains later on. 24 will be the high in Njeri. It's currently mostly cloudy. We're expecting some rains later there as well. Nakuru this morning is partly cloudy. We're looking at current situations of 14 degrees, going to highs of 24 and lows of 12, with some rains expected later during the day. Thunderstorms will be in the forecast, or rather are in the forecast for Eldoret. Currently mostly cloudy conditions at 14 degrees. It looks like a wet afternoon in Kisumu today. It's currently partly cloudy at 19 and it'll go to highs of 28. Kakamega also experiencing rains later on. Partly cloudy at 17, highs of 26 and lows of 15. Light rain showers continue in Mombasa. It's mostly cloudy in some parts of the day and goes back into rains later, with highs of 29 and lows of 24. The forecast reads rain in Malindi. Started this morning and will continue later with highs of 29 and lows of 25. Let's take a look then into Kampala, where it's mostly cloudy at 18 degrees, highs of 25 and lows of 18, with showers expected going into thunderstorms. Dar es Salaam is partly cloudy at 23, going to highs of 30 and lows of 22, with a chance of rains in the afternoon. Let's take a look at Johannesburg, where it's clear at 12. Mostly sunny conditions throughout today, with highs of 25 and lows of 11. And finally, for now, the rains continue to come down in Lagos. Thunderstorms throughout most of the day, highs of 29 and lows of 23.
Spice up your life.
Okay, so how has this changed over the last few minutes? We see Mombasa Road all the way from Syokimau is a parking lot. The question is, what's happening? We know that traffic already was bad, but then now with the construction of the expressway, traffic gets a lot worse, with certain parts of the roads being blocked off because the power companies and the water companies need to get their pipes out of the way. So this is one thing. As you're getting onto the roads this morning, especially Mombasa Road, with the construction that is taking place, and you're asking yourself why, and why are we stuck for so long? It's because because of this. Right now, no accidents have been reported, nothing like that going on, but just heightened levels of traffic because of the construction. There's also construction taking place on Jogo Road, and also certain parts of industrial area. So this slows down traffic significantly, and that's why you're experiencing what you are. Coming off of Thika Road is not so bad. Getting into the CBD via the Globe Cinema overpass. Forest Road also gives you a great opportunity to get to town in no time. Spice FM KE. Tell us what you see. 40127. Text us.
Spice FM, Nakuru.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
The conversation continues right here. Spice FM, broadcasting to Nairobi, Mombasa, Kisumu, Nakuru, Eldoret, Nyeri, Malindi, online on www.spicefm.co.ke, on Spice FM KE, YouTube, Facebook and Twitter, as well as KTN Home for the next 1.5 hours as well. In the room this and every morning is CT Muga, Nduh Okoh, Eric Latiff, and joining us on the line is Horn of Africa analyst Rashid Abdi. We are unpacking the story by the New York Times from a report by the United Nations about Al-Shabaab and how it's been able to exploit Somali banking and system and investing in real estate. Rashid, from looking at this report, now the report they say is still embargoed, but the New York Times has been able to see it on all. And trying to understand exactly how then they have been able to get into the financial system and move the money around. What is it that they have done, and who could we say is helping them to achieve this?
Yeah. I think one has to remember that the Somali banking system and the financial system basically collapsed like the rest of Somalia in 1991. And I think for the last 20 years, the country has been reliant on a very makeshift kind of system to survive. So there isn't. We are only beginning to see the emergence of indigenous banks and institutions right now. But also there are, after 9/11, there was a big crackdown on Somali financial institutions, largely based on perception that the Hawala system or the informal money transfer system was involved in basically facilitating terrorism. So that also, I think, created a huge disincentive for the creation of a banking system. So Somalia does not have a formal banking system. A few banks have begun to emerge in recent years, in the last especially 5 years. They are very rudimentary, but the bulk of money is still with the Hawala system. This is the system where in which people rely on for receiving and sending money. But also, interestingly, there is something similar now to M-Pesa in Somalia, which is called MZAD. So these are very rudimentary structures still. You can't compare it to a very sophisticated economic system like that of Kenya. But still, I think Al-Shabaab exploits, first of all, this weak system, this lack of regulation, in order to be able to then move some of this cash around. And I think what Al-Shabaab is interested in is basically to launder this money, to basically put this money in real estate in particular. And this is what I think the report is clearly highlighting, that despite the very weak structures and the lack of regulation, Al-Shabaab is able to find loopholes and also exploit these loopholes in order to then funnel this money through the system and then be able to launder this cash. And this is, I think, is not. It shouldn't come as a surprise, because this is something which is a pattern which is repeated in many of these fragile or conflict societies, where powerful conflict actors find ways to manipulate or find ways of bypassing the system, and then basically making. This is about the conflict economy, in other words.
Sure, Abdi, and the conflict economy, and it's interesting that you mentioned conflict actors, because if Al-Shabaab has taken advantage of an already depressed state, an already depressed economy, as it were, are there actors who are benefiting from Somali being in the state in which it is? Because we've seen examples around the world where economies have been depressed because of conflict, and we have seen the salvation of these economies by other actors. Not so much in Somalia since 1991, like you've said. There hasn't really been any kind of direct intervention to kind of lift Somalia out of this economic hell that it's in, really. It has just been introduction of AMISOM troops here, introduction of the UN, introduction of other countries sending in their troops to kind of hold a makeshift peace. But in terms of really digging the country out of this problem, there hasn't really been that intervention. Now, Al-Shabaab has taken advantage of this, but are there external players who are benefiting directly from Somalia remaining in the situation in which it is in?
Yeah. I think you touched on a point which has exercised a lot of minds in recent years. Somalia occupies a very geostrategic location. It overlooks the Gulf of Aden. It is close to the Red Sea. These are waterways which are quite vital for international commerce. This is, where probably close to 40-45% of world's energy supplies pass through. Throughout the Cold War, but even in the age of empire, imperial powers used to compete for foothold or for access or dominance over this. So it is one of the most strategic regions. The Horn of Africa is the most strategic region, one of the most strategic regions in the world. So it isn't a surprise that many powers would want to influence Somalia, would want to have a stake in Somalia. And we have seen the emergence of what we call middle powers, countries like Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Turkey. All of them are now competing for a stake, competing for basically influence in Somalia. And all these actors are not rowing in the same direction. They are not working together to lift Somalia from out of conflict, out of fragility, and to help Somalia. They are pulling Somalia in different directions. And I think their rivalry and this bitter Gulf crisis, which has spilled over into Somalia, has had a terrible effect on the country. It has driven a wedge between Mogadishu and also the federal states. It has, I think, aggravated the relations between Somaliland, which has claimed, independence, against, and Somalia. So I think the international regional competition for Somalia has had a devastating impact on that country. And I would argue that part of the crisis which we face in Somalia today is because many powers, outside powers, are competing over this war-shattered country. And I think any analysis of Somalia would be inadequate unless it factors in this geopolitical contestation for Somalia.
This competition you speak of, what form does it take?
It takes, classically, it takes the form of basically grooming of politicians. We have seen that in every electoral cycle. One of the Gulf actors, basically sends money and then grooms certain politicians. And the Qataris in particular are very adept at this game. For example, in the last two electoral cycles, the Qatari government has been directly involved in basically picking and enabling certain politicians to actually win Farmajo will not have won if it wasn't for Qatari funding, for example.
Now, if you look at what you're saying, because one, you have the UN forces, now you have the Middle East players, and we've thrown in Turkey into it, also wanting a slice of this particular food commodity. But for these people to actually have a foothold, it means that those who were there militarily do not seem to have an objection to what they're doing. Would I be correct in saying so?
Yes, and I think we tend to analyze the negative impacts of geopolitical competition by simply looking at the impact it has on fragile countries like Somalia. But remember, these fragile countries are also led by predatory elites who do not have the interest of their people at heart. So what they do essentially is that they counter-manipulate these actors. So in other words, this is a clever elite that plays one power against another. Yeah. And this is a pattern you see repeated in many conflict settings where the elites have their own interest beyond the countries where they are rulers.
I mentioned earlier on, or rather I asked, what you thought might happen if the UN forces withdrew. AU. Now, AU? No, AU, UN, AMISOM, yes, UN. Is the same kettle of fish. Given the evidence that we have about the unimpressive success rate of such interventions, what do you think is likely to happen if AMISOM and all these bodies that are supported by the UN and the West continue staying in Somalia? Do you foresee a situation where Somalia would actually get out of this morass that is in and actually become a proud nation that is able to stand on its own?
That's an excellent question. I have no doubt in my mind that the future of Somalia in the longer term would probably be better than what it is now. In the short to medium term, this country will still be in crisis and turmoil. But the roadmap ahead, I think, will have to include a disengagement, a gradual disengagement of the international community from these peace processes. I think Somalia has probably reached a point where unless it takes the lead in its own,
future,
it becomes, it takes over its own processes of state building and institution building. If everything is internationally led, regionally led, I think that's a very unhealthy dynamic. It makes these people completely dependent, and I think it has to be done, in a calibrated way. I think a sudden international pullout from Somalia will be catastrophic, will lead to a collapse, and will allow Al-Shabaab to take over. So what we need is a kind of a planned exit or withdrawal where Somalia's, for example, military forces will be trained up to a point where they can be able to take charge of from AMISOM. Then institutions built and with that become functional. So I think there's no doubt that the heavy international engagement in Somalia is counterproductive in the longer term. And you need to build the independence and resilience of these people. And if you want to do that, you cannot be there permanently. So right. I think you are right, Professor, that you need to disengage, but you need to do it in a phased kind of way.
To whom would the reins of power essentially be handed to, Abdi? I mean, looking at pinpointing, do you have those who believe in state legitimacy, nationalism, like you talk about, that for whom all these things doesn't fly in the face of state sovereignty, for example? Do those attributes exist now for Somalia as you see it? For something, because you've got to start from somewhere. And if these don't exist, where is it supposed to happen? And it's clear that groups like Al-Shabaab can reign in the way they do because nobody is holding on to any of these attributes or trying to even have a legitimate government in place. So are there those who are holding these things and saying, okay, given the opportunity, given the time, then we will be able to bring it forward. Does it exist even as we see?
Yeah. I think I don't want to give the impression that everything is hopeless. I think the country has made some progress in terms of peace building and reconciliation, and I think you are beginning to see the green shoots of peace. This is not a country that is hopeless. Otherwise, you wouldn't have all these actors running to basically have a stake and influence in it. This is a country that probably has the potential to become the Singapore of the Horn of Africa in a few years' time, if only it can have stability and peace. So I think it will get there, but before then, I think we have to be prepared for a very messy process. So definitely, we are beginning to see, I think, a new, class of politicians emerge who are consensus builders, who believe in, inclusive processes. We are also beginning to see a decrease in interclan animosities and violence, and that I think is positive. We are beginning to see, I think, more women emerge in positions of influence and power. We're not there yet.
Right.
The situation of women in particular is still horrible. But I think anyone who looks at Somalia realistically will see a country that is beginning, I think, to emerge out of conflict, is on its way towards, I think, prosperity.
There's been a lot of talk in Kenya about Kenyan youth joining Al-Shabaab. First statement, there's a question attached to it. How true is it, and do you have any figures in terms of the numbers of young people who would join? Part two of my question is, do you think that if opportunities were made more available to the youth, that what I have stated, or the numbers of young people who, it is said, leave Kenya to join Al-Shabaab, could actually be reduced?
Yes. The exact number of Kenyan or East Africans who have joined Al-Shabaab is not known. But I think there is no doubt. All the analysis I've seen clearly say that a significant chunk of the Al-Shabaab soldiery, this is probably something close to 60%, is now East Africans. And that is quite a significantly high figure. Al-Shabaab's communique and propaganda material is now done in Swahili. A clear indication that, you have a growing number of Swahili-speaking component. We know, for example, that the leader of the Kenyan jihadi group, Ali Iman, who is from Meru County, is a senior member of Al-Shabaab, and he is in south-central Somalia. So there is a growing jihadi youth component from Kenya, but also from Tanzania, from Zanzibar, from Uganda, who are part of Al-Shabaab. Al-Shabaab is no longer a Somali jihadi group. It is an East African jihadi group. And I think that is an important distinction which ought to be made. You have more fighters probably now, Al-Shabaab, who are East Africans than actually even Somali. So that, I think, is the reality. Al-Shabaab is now a transnational jihadi movement, and it's just no longer a very narrow Somali militant movement.
Is it true that there's also... These people... Sorry, go ahead. Finish.
The question has been asked, how do you get these people out of Al-Shabaab? I think we are beginning to see some of them return. And for the last 5 or 6 years, the number of returnees from Al-Shabaab has been growing in number. And what is interesting is that actually most of the returnees from Al-Shabaab are from Western Kenya, and that is quite fascinating. Al-Shabaab has heavily recruited from Western Kenya for a number of years. It is estimated that close to 2,500 have probably returned from Somalia. I think where the problem lies is, what do you do for these boys who are returning? How do you rehabilitate them? How do you de-radicalize them? How do you reintegrate them into society? And I don't think the Kenyan government has done a good job of really integrating these returnees or even showing, I think, competence in really handling this big jihadi radicalization problem they have in many places in Kenya. So unless I think the Kenyan government also responds, and not just by security means, I think one of the problems we have in Kenya is to securitize everything, to send in security forces and to crack down hard. And we know that there has been a lot of human rights violations. This is not the way to go. You actually create double the problem. Instead of resolving the youth alienation, which gives rise to this jihadi problem, you actually inflame tensions, you antagonize communities, you create hate, and that is not the way to go around it. I think the Kenyan government has to learn that there are better ways of handling these problems, and unfortunately, we haven't gotten there yet.
Sure. You recently said, I mean, I'm just going to quote what you said, and you said, referring to Al-Shabaab, it's no longer an insurgency, but an economic power. It's a shadow state that's out-taxing the government, even in its areas it doesn't control. And you went on to say that much more entrenched, resilient, and deep-rotted organization that doesn't have to rely on might or military force to stay relevant. This is what you said about Al-Shabaab. Deep-rooted. And if now we're talking about going to the place whereby it doesn't control the state, it doesn't control government, it doesn't control the people, I guess asking you to look into some kind of crystal ball that you have and say, what is necessary to get Al-Shabaab out?
Yeah.
What needs to happen?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I think I spend a lot of my time actually looking at what will be the end game for Al-Shabaab, how is Al-Shabaab evolving, what is the best way to basically bring Al-Shabaab out of militancy and jihadism into some kind of a state-building process. Because I think this is a legitimate question to ask, because we see the Taliban now involved in negotiations with the Afghan state. So we can ask a similar question about Al-Shabaab. So I am amenable to the idea of Al-Shabaab and the government having some kind of a settlement, a negotiated settlement. But I don't hold out a lot of prospect for that, largely because I think resolutions of conflicts are usually a delicate balance of power. You know, you have to have two interlocutors whose power balance is the same, or who are hurting from a stalemate. In this case, you have a situation where one side is weak, the other side is stronger and growing stronger. And so there isn't a lot of incentive actually for Al-Shabaab to come on board. They are actually just looking at the country and saying, AMISOM is now packing up its bags and leaving, so the clock is on my side. Very soon I'll be able to take over the state. So those are the dynamics which are at play. And so Al-Shabaab will be very reluctant without AMISOM actually leaving the country. And if AMISOM leaves the country, then they wouldn't need talks. They will just take over. So it is a very complicated, I think, situation. It isn't just simple and saying these parties should talk and there will be resolution. I think negotiations with Al-Shabaab will be protracted. It will take years, probably even decades. So it's not easy, but I see a situation where it makes sense to actually engage Al-Shabaab, and if that can be done by other mediators, other third parties, other foreign states, that has to be, I think, explored. But at the moment, I'm keeping my analysis open on that front. I haven't made up my decision one way or another.
Rashid Abdi, we want to thank you very much for speaking to us this morning and helping us to understand what's happening in Somalia with regards to Al-Shabaab, with regards to the government and also the other federal states, and what's happening in the country. From this report by the UN, that Al-Shabaab is really gaining a foothold in terms of how it's able to move its cash, generate a lot of money, move it around, and it's trying to infiltrate the formal sector by laundering this cash. Asante sana for clearing all that for us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
right? And it's time for us now to take a break on in the Situation Room, broadcasting on Spice FM and KTN Home. Time to take a break for our audience on KTN Home. This conversation continues.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
Right at 5 minutes to 8 o'clock. Just to remind you about the new Gold Crown lactose-free milk by the new KCC. Now, yesterday we talked about infants. You can start weaning your infant at about 6 months with the new lactose-free milk. However, if you've gone to a doctor and the doctor has said that you are allergic to milk, lactose-free milk is still milk. So if you're allergic to milk, basically you are still allergic even to this lactose-free milk because it has the full milk components and therefore you cannot be taken by people who are allergic unless otherwise advised by your doctor. Gold Crown lactose-free milk is available in all leading supermarkets countrywide. It comes in 3 pack sizes: the family pack, which is 1 liter, the convenient pack, which is 250 milliliters, and the pocket-friendly pack, which is 500 ml. Stay tuned to the Situation Room as we want to award 2 winners this morning. And the question is very simple. Go to Spice FM KE on Facebook and Twitter. In what sizes does the Gold Crown lactose-free milk come? In what sizes does the Gold Crown lactose-free milk come? Spice FM KE, YouTube, Facebook and Twitter specifically. Facebook and Twitter. Our main man, our social media guru, Mr. Brian Amurioto, is going to pick the 2 winners for today. So, ladies and gentlemen, that conversation about the Al-Shabaab and hearing how the Al-Shabaab is still able to operate in the country. One thing that I hear, there's first of all, there's still optimism, and then there's a reality. And the optimism, even if you look back in the last 30 years, Siad Barre in 1991, up to where we are now, where we have a president, Farmajo, who has been elected. We have, a legislative assembly. We have regions. There's a government. There's movement. Up to a point where you even see these other countries coming in and establishing relations and formal relations with a sitting government, just like you mentioned them. Yes, they're coming there with their own interests, but that is what happens everywhere in the world. The Gulf states, the Turkey, the UK, Kenya, all of those that are moving into Mogadishu and establishing relations and even setting up bases and building embassies, there's movement that it's moving back towards being a proper state that's functioning. What is it going to take to eliminate the Al-Shabaab?
That, I think, really is the crux of the matter. See, if we are thinking of Al-Shabaab in terms of how we see government, this group of people who run, I'm going to call it a business called Al-Shabaab, okay? But we forget that the participants in this business are all over the country. And the reason why Al-Shabaab functions is beyond the physical presence of the members, it is the ideology that they put across and the service that they clearly now seem to provide. If you were to look at details that have been given about, say, the literacy rate in a place like Somalia, it's very disproportionate between men and women. It is argued that it's something like 37%. Now, war-torn areas, unless there's a very direct intervention, very direct by well-meaning partners, the ravages of those wars last for the longest time. And the people who are most hit tend to be people who are in the rural areas. They are the ones who will probably be economically challenged and are not able to do anything about their life, so they stay there. Now, I would have asked the question, what form of government do we think, or does Mr. Rashid think the government, Somaliland, would most benefit from?
Somalia.
Yes, no, when I say Somaliland, of course, you're talking about...
Somaliland.
Yes, Somalia. Because the idea of one person having a say for all these people doesn't seem to work.
No.
Somebody seems to agree with you on Facebook. Robert Mbogo says, from Abdi's analysis on Al-Shabaab in Somalia, it's the high time the international community, the Somali government and all stakeholders reevaluate their stand and work with Al-Shabaab for prosperity of Somalia. I don't see anything good coming out of Somalia without Al-Shabaab's involvement. No military intervention will overturn this fact. It's basically saying, find a way of reintegrating them into formal government. Find a way of working with all these various factions. So you see, even in Somaliland, in Puntland, in Jubaland, we have all these militia. how do you then bring all of them together? Maybe that's finding a system that then accommodates all of them.
Yes. How do you ensure that they do not feel that whatever rights they have are not interfered with? Because what is certain, having one autonomous leader for that country is not going to work.
No, that's clear.
All right, so we'll continue these conversations in the next hour. This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. We are on KTN Home, we are online, we are on terrestrial radio, and we are also sampling your comments on Spice FM KE, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. It's now 8 o'clock.
Spice up your life. 102.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
All right,
Traffic.
Kiambu Road, as normal, is a standstill this morning right around this time. Traffic is not moving and joining with the Thika Superhighway. Trying to get your way to town if you are on Kiambu Road this morning is a thing. It's going to take a minute and more to get off of that one. So it's now 6 lanes and counting, where it should be 2. All right, then getting onto Thika Superhighway and then getting into the CBD as well. You're going to have a stop up right around the Globe Cinema overpass and then getting into the CBD from there. Mombasa Road is still also chock blocks all the way from the SGR through, and that is bumper to bumper situation. Okay, other parts of the city not looking too bad. Jogo Road is moving slowly but moving all the same, getting to the CBD as well. So the two places where we have those issues, Mombasa Road and Thika Road, and other parts getting in, not too bad. Spice FM KE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter or text us on 40127.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Nduh Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Just for the record, I'm a peace-loving person. I don't punch anywhere.
All right.
Not in 2020. But welcome to the third hour of the show, the second hour on KTN Home. C.T. Muga, as we begin this hour. Remind us today's proverb.
If you do not travel, you will marry your own sister. Remember, there are communities where people marry their cousins, and it's not considered an issue. It is said in ancient Egypt, in fact, they understood this thing clearly. People married their sisters, not cousins, sisters. So, but we are in modern times.
Yeah.
And there's a reason why marrying your relatives is discouraged, or should I call it blood relatives. So, if you do not travel, and the travel here doesn't have to be physical, no, you will marry your own sister.
All right. So let's talk about what we witness in our country on a daily basis. There is it even touches on now schools reopening. It's touching on the complaints that have been made in international markets. Nduh?
Right. So it pops up every now and then. I mean, it pops up in conversation when we're talking about several other things, and it has come out and shed its skin when we looked at what has happened with the whole Kakuzi debacle, whereby Tesco now will not take produce from Kakuzi anymore because of the allegations that have been made against the company here in Muranga County about abuse on some of its by some of its employees to some of its employees as well, and it has also given rise to to complaints of child labor, putting younger Kenyans on their fields to do work. Right, so that has come about and has come out into the limelight. But then giving rise to the broader conversation that continues is that younger people, youth, children, essentially, under the age of 18, are being used for manual labor in very large companies, in smaller ones, with the consent of their parents. It's happening. It's an accepted form. If you want to look traditionally, even across the continent, one of the main reasons why people had many children was to be able to help them on their farms. That was it. It was not so that they could show their prowess in terms of childbearing. It was essentially so that they would not have to hire out or pay money that they didn't have to laborers to come and work on their fields or their farms. So they had children, and as they grew up, they then were the ones who worked for them and they grew their family's wealth together. This is something that was traditionally accepted from time immemorial. Now, trends have changed. New trends have come in across the globe, right? And it has now been frowned upon, shunned, even condemned in very many cases, whereby they say, you cannot expect a child to come and work in some of these establishments when they should actually be in school. Now, look at what we are facing now. Some children have not been able to go back to school, reported today in present time, because of the fact that when schools closed, they went to work. They went to look for something to do. Still considered children, but it was a way to bring money to the family. It brings in a very sticky question here. Even when you now start going to issues of child marriage, when you want to now start looking at who says young is too young when somebody is looking for a young wife, and things that have been traditionally accepted from a very long time ago are now having a clash with global trends or global demands or even, yes, global condemnations. Can we actually say that we need to drop all of these things which have been traditionally accepted from a very long time ago to be in tandem with what the rest of the world is saying? Don't put children in labor when it comes to work. Don't make them go to work. They should be in school. Their needs should be cared for. What do you actually do? And the conversation from the international bodies has been always, children should be in school. They shouldn't be working. And now we are faced with that discussion once again. We have a clash. Do we drop what you know has been traditionally acceptable in the light of all of this and say, no, actually children should go to school? And when you do have an opportunity, send them to school. If not, they should not be working. They should be at home. And the question comes up and we ask ourselves and say, what exactly are we supposed to do? Do we drop these traditions and go with it? Or do we say that this is what we have known from a long from time immemorial, and this is what we're going to continue to go with? The conversation is coming up. It's a problem that we're dealing with now. How are we supposed to actually mitigate against some of these abuses that we see, or are they even abuses? And that's the conversation that is being taken into consideration right now.
As we have this conversation, looking at the reports, children have reopened after many months at home. What is it that has happened? We have seen boys have gone to start, working. We've seen girls who have either been married off or they have become pregnant, and so they are not able to reopen school at this particular point. And we see this all the time. The definition of labor for children from the African context, is it the same definition that maybe the international community or the West would have? If it's about you sending your children to the farm to go and work at the end of the day, after they've come from school, they have some chores, and some of those chores will involve going to work or going to look after cattle or going to look at taking the livestock for water and all, is that child labor? Or is it just part of upbringing of children? How then do we define child labor? If we talk about now these are the traditions of getting to a point where you get married at a certain age, and the community has always known this as something that happens. You get married off, you go get married at a certain age. There's a law that says, no, as long as you're a child, then you're below the age of consent, then you cannot therefore have made the decision to get into marriage. And we still have this constant conflict between tradition, customs, and the law.
And the law.
As it is written now. And just for clarity, it's not really the issue of what is happening with Tesco and Kakuzi. It's about what happens in the society.
Generally.
With Tesco and Kakuzi, the issues are about the treatment or mistreatment of workers and the neighborhood community, not necessarily about labor relations. But what we see, the issue about school, the issue about FGM, all this happens all the time. How do we strike that balance? How do we even define that child labor just from the beginning?
Well, if you want to look at what the definition has been attributed, what child labor is the exploitation of children through any form of work that deprives children of their childhood, interferes with their ability to attend regular school, and is mentally, physically, socially, or morally harmful. That's going to bring any kind of harm, that is going to interfere with their ability to go to school or going to interfere with their childhood. Now, when you say childhood, now socialization, learning the things that a child should learn, playing in the way a child should play, in whatever form you want to look at it. So anything that comes into conflict with this process, whereby they have to work and exploit the process, that's what you look at as child labor.
So you're talking about children's rights, and you're talking about whether people in our societies or traditional societies understand these rights. Because the conflict arises when someone will put into practice what they consider to be normal and forget just the rights of the individual or the adult, the rights of children, because this is a different set of rights that are laid out in our constitution. Now, ignorance, we know, is not a defense as far as our laws are concerned. But the truth of the matter is, you cannot discuss something like child labor without discussing, as you correctly put it, the wide array of things that come into discussion when you talk about this. For instance, it is assumed that it is a Western concept and a well thought out process to actually fundamentally insist and enforce the rights of children. And then you will come across very strong headwinds of, say, the rights of religion that individuals have. You'll come against very strong winds. If, say, for instance, in the States where, yes, there will be a state that has laws that permit certain things. Now, it isn't conflict until one tries to enforce the other and there is another understanding that acts or comes against it. People do not allow their children to go to work because it is something that is supposed to be fun and interesting. It's because they need that extra income. And that income is what also helps that child eat. So, we are saying that if children could work outside school hours or before school hours, then it cannot be said that their rights are being interfered with.
But you see, the thing is, what if that is the case, and you're saying that anything that would interfere with that process, whereby they were getting a quality education, because if you look at reports that have come from some teachers, even around the country, even before this whole COVID going back to school issue, that you would find that children would be in class and falling asleep, right? Because they would have to come home, do certain work, and then maybe walk long distances to get to school and then fall asleep in class, interfering with the process once again.
They are pointing to fatigue as the culprit, and I would point at hunger as the culprit. Because in rural settings, it can't be just a few children who walk long distances. Children walk long distances, run long distances. And with the time that's what you do, it is exactly normal for you. It's not a big issue. But if you are hungry, you will most certainly sleep in class. You don't even need to have done any work. You just need to have slept hungry, woken up and gone to school. You will sleep in class. And you don't even need to be in a rural setting. You just need to be in a setting where your parents cannot afford to feed you well. You will sleep in class because you have not eaten. Now, if you're talking about the education of children being interfered with, the disparity we have in our educational system contributes to that even more significantly than what we're actually discussing here. Because you are now, for instance, right now, we're talking about children going back to school. The debate that is raging, if we just remove the emotions from it for a while, you will realize that what we're actually discussing is the disparity. Certain things that you take for granted or you assume should be taken for granted don't exist. Something as fundamental as water. It doesn't have to be sprinting or running anywhere. Just water, the availability. Problem. And water is very key to fighting COVID. You are talking about food for children who are in boarding schools or in day schools. And you're talking about a situation where the government hasn't been able to send money. Children cannot be fed. Yet they have to go to school. And that was the understanding. The reason why the logic behind this feeding was actually really sound. It was an understanding that many children may go to school and have not eaten. So provide. Kudos to the government. Now, in the absence of that, you're going to have an entire class of students sleeping. I'm being a bit dramatic here, but there's a point I want to drive home. So, traditions in the setup that I am actually alluding to doesn't even take center stage. You'd be amazed at how self-interest and benefits will trump over tradition any time.
The numbers of those that we're looking at now, just looking at reports that came out just yesterday, thousands of children miss school, and the reasons being attributed to this is you look at boys having been asked to go and do some kind of work. So it seems that the thought did not cross the minds of parents twice. Okay, not in school, then there's actually something that you can do that's going to bring some extra income into the family. And now if you're looking at the child labor laws or labor laws concerning children, this should not happen. It should not happen. So then who is going to meet the shortfall? Because parents are looking for something extra. Across the country, we're not just looking at one particular area. Across the country, then go and do something that's going to bring an extra income here. Go into the streets and sell what you need to sell. Go work on farm somewhere. Come and help your parents on the farm somewhere. Come and do something that's going to bring in some extra income. And according to the law, according to what the definitions are, that should not be allowed. So you're looking at two issues here. Where you say that children did not go back to school because of this. At the same time, against the law, what they're doing or what parents are asking them to do then is against the law. But in terms of making sure that that law is actually abided by, it doesn't really happen. It doesn't happen. So we're contravening laws here.
It isn't as though parents ask 6-month-old children to go to the farm to dig, do they? No. It isn't as though they even ask 2-year-olds or 3-year-olds. This matter of contributing to the family welfare is entrenched in literally every society in this world. We tend to focus on more agrarian communities where we talk about tilling the land. But it was not just traditional, but it was a way of getting you to understand the relationship you have with that piece of earth. It feeds you, but you contribute to it. Now, there's a point at which tradition, as we know it, and the laws meet very happily. It's in the responsibility of the parents. There is no tradition on this planet that absolves parents from the responsibility they have towards children. None. Now, if that responsibility involves this very same thing we are saying our laws are against, remember, when we talk about work, what are you talking about? Are we talking about the corporate sort of work? Are you talking about work as we know it, mjengo, as we call it in Kenya? What are we talking about? Because this contribution to farm labor in many rural communities it's just that contribution. It's not even looked at as
it's not looked at from the side of the family.
But if you look at it, is it depriving that child of their childhood? When a child
childhood
comes...
according to whom, Eric? Let's get this clear.
The child. When a child comes from school in the evening, let's even use Nairobi. Get home and then you're given this bowl and it has groundnuts and told, go by the roadside and sell. And come when you've finished. Right? And you know very well that after I come out of school in the evening, I've got to rush home because I have the njugus to go and sell by the roadside. is that labor? Is that depriving the child of their childhood?
How
Is that exposing this child to harm?
Okay. Explain to me how this child is being deprived of childhood. I need
Opportunities
to
are moments to play, moments to interact with the fellow children.
They do that in school.
Moments to interact with the parents.
By the time the parent is giving you that bowl
Moment
of groundnuts to go
take
and
a
serve,
moment
you're
and unwind.
interacting. By the way, I've taken a position on this one here, as you can see.
Yeah.
So carry on.
So all that, moment to unwind and all. When this child has no break, when this child knows that I'll come from school, I will go home, and when I get home, the first thing that I need to do is
what
go
should
to
the
the
parent
goats.
do? Okay? Because we're assuming the parent has other options. What should the parent do?
Find someone else to do that. Let the child be a child. That's according to the law. The law would assume that this child, during this age of childhood, is not involved in chores that then disrupt their lives. And that's why I started by asking, so how do we define, at what point does it become a disruption? And that's why I'm actually bringing up these issues. At what point does it become a disruption and depriving of this child?
Disruption according to whom?
When you take this child and the kid has come from home, has gone home in the evening, from school, gone home in the evening, and the first thing they want to do is go to the river, fetch water. Come.
Yes.
Weekend, you are going to spend
cooking and
assisting everything else. Is this depriving the child of their childhood?
The picture
or is this
you
part
paint,
of parenting?
The picture you paint is incomplete. It isn't as though if a child is involved, we're referring here to a rural setting, helping chores like cooking at home, that they don't play. They do play. They do play. Even if you go to...
I think you're saying they play in the process of doing this work.
Yes, that is what I'm trying to say. Because if you look at even, for instance, young boys going to look after cows, take cows for grazing,
Yep.
they will play. If you talk about people going to fetch water even at the river,
Yep.
they don't just fetch water and return immediately. No, they will play. What I'm saying is, if that is what you've been brought up to understand as the norm, you are now introducing a new concept and saying that this norm is actually bad. The law is being broken. I'm saying, does the law actually state that these sort of chores are in and of themselves necessarily wrong?
It doesn't go directly to say that, and what it does, and maybe some would say they're obscure or ambiguous, but what it does say is that anything that will disrupt the process of childhood, which includes socialization, and again, yes, this playing and things, anything that would disrupt that process, then is seen as labor, which is an exploitation of their rights.
So we are saying that when this happens, then the parent is actually derelict of the duty that they are charged with to look after the interests of the child.
Yes.
And this is
what I'm saying.
That is according to the law.
That's according to the law.
Yes.
Now, that's where the discussion is. That's what you're raising, Nduh. Should we find a balance? How do we find that balance between understanding that this is not really interfering, but this is part of upbringing? You are raising your child by teaching them responsibility, by giving them a direct responsibility. It is your responsibility to ensure that we have cooking water in the house.
Eric,
It's your responsibility.
And if you go to other societies, any child comes back from other societies, and we're looking at this the world over, and unfortunately some of these definitions have come from other societies. So if you go to those areas and a child is having to do some kind of, you can have yourself reported to child services for something like that. Whereas on this side of the pond, it wouldn't be heard of that you would come back from school, for example, and not help out at home, and not take the cows to graze, and not do 1, 2, 3 other things, right? But now those definitions, now when you want to play on a global scale, are being brought in and said, you know what, actually, you're depriving this child, or you're exploiting this child by what they've been asked to do. Now look at what has happened. Some children cannot go back to school because they've already put themselves in situations, or they've been put in situations where they have to work. And this work that they're doing, they cannot now stop because their parents are used to the income that comes from that over the last 7 months. So they need some time to wean them from those situations, depriving this child of going to school. Can we find a nexus between the two? Is there something that we should do to say that we want to keep up with what this new order is, while at the same time maintaining some of our traditions as we know them to be, or do we leave one completely and embrace the other?
very wide open conversation, and we would like you to participate in this conversation when you come out of the break. 0719-012-600, or you can text us on 40127, or you can post your comment on our social media handles, Spice FM KE, on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. 24 minutes after 8. We take a break now on Spice FM and KTN Home. We'll be back shortly.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Spice FM. Njeri. 24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Next week on the Great Kenyan Bake Off.
Please, bake, please. It is a race against the clock.
The bakers from Heat 1 are back.
Hey.
Yeah. After having survived elimination, the stakes are higher. Catch the action as they take on Biscuit Week, facing a technical that will level the playing field.
It's too much work.
And a showstopper challenge that won't leave you hanging.
Just smile and wave, Kiran. Smile and wave.
The Great Kenyan Bake Off, brought to you by Unga Limited, inspiring a nation to bake.
Spice FM. Spice up your life.
It's overcast in Nairobi.
The
Mostly
weather.
Cloudy conditions for most parts of the morning. Highs of 26 and lows of 14, and still looking at a chance of rain later. Mostly cloudy in Njeri at 17, highs of 24 and lows of 14. Nakuru is partly cloudy at 16, highs of 24 and lows of 12. Eldoret 15 and mostly cloudy, and chance of thunderstorms later on. And in Kisumu today, we are looking at partly cloudy conditions at 20, highs of 28 and lows of 19. It's partly cloudy in Kakamega at 19 degrees, highs of 26 today and lows of 15, with thunderstorms expected later on. It's mostly cloudy in Mombasa at 28 degrees, highs of 29 and lows of 24. And in Malindi, it's mostly cloudy as well. We're at 28 and we'll go to highs of 29 today, and a chance of showers coming down to a low of 25. Okay, it's mostly cloudy in Kampala at 20, highs of 24 and lows of 18, with thunderstorms expected later. And in Dar es Salaam today, it's partly cloudy at 26, highs of 31 and lows of 23. Also, we'll experience some rains later. Let's take a look at Joburg, where it's mostly sunny at 15, highs of 25 and lows of 11. And the rains continue to come down in Lagos. The highest today will be 29, coming down to lows of 23.
Spice FM. Spice up your life.
Okay, what is it look like now? The train... The train that was passing through Donholm decided it was not going to stop, and everybody who was waiting now has found another route to get to town. Decided they were not going to stop at that particular terminal. So sorry, guys. You need to now get onto public transport, and then it's causing some traffic right around that roundabout, okay? Because everybody now is standing waiting for public transport now that the train decided not to stop and there was no communication. So, okay, you understand, right? So, on Mombasa Road, getting into the CBD is still slow, quite all the way from Gateway Mall moving down. It's opening up a little bit, but still some traffic there, as is on Kiambu Road, trying to join the superhighway. It's not happening right now. Well, not as quickly as you would like it to. The road construction continues on Gong Road, still continues in industrial area, and this is where we see heightened levels of traffic right around this time. You get stuck, let us know. Spice of MKE on Twitter, or text us on 40127.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
It is 29 minutes after 8 and the conversation continues. Spice FM, KTN Home and online. We are discussing the law against child labor and the context of African traditions and customs of bringing up your children. So let's go to the phone lines because you'd asked for your comment. Rono calling in from Eldoret. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. And
Good morning.
You waded right smack into the middle of what is ailing all of us. Borrowed aspirations. If you read Charles Dickens, you know child labor was rampant in Europe during that time. This is what informs. What you are discussing is what informs what is happening in the political arena, what is happening in our economy.
I believe you're referring to Oliver Twist here.
Both Oliver Twist and Charles Dickens, Tom Sawyer named them. Mwalimu, I did my literature well.
And I thank you for bringing Oliver Twist. It actually mirrors our situation perfectly well. Please carry on.
Yes. What you are saying is an advent or a promotion of a cause that does not fit into our situations. This is a social issue. It's a social issue. Whereas a child was brought up in the African setup to be part and parcel of everything in society, right from the production of food. Education was integral. It was within the life.
Yeah.
It was not separate. You did not have to go to school to get educated.
Right.
You learned while you are playing. You learned while you are working. You learned even when you are listening to folklore. And assimilated very critical responsibility imparting attributes. Now, when you make education industrial, it becomes a business. Then you need to isolate the child from the parent and create a job out of the learning process for the teacher and the academic system in general, construction of the infrastructure, the generation of the learning material, and all the way to when you have an adult who needs a certificate to get a job, which he knows very little about. That is what you see on the roads now. The border riders who have no clue to the highway code.
So in short, Rono, as we pick other callers, are you for or against the law then? Or are you saying that this law is misplaced in the context of the African society?
I am for having laws that are contextualized to our environment and our social setup.
Okay.
Yeah.
Asante sana. Let's hear from Kenya in Nakuru. Kenya, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for speaking to us. Welcome to the Situation Room. What do you make of this, Kenya?
I like the discussion. All these things we are talking about is just poor governance. Yes, that is poor governance.
How so?
Because if just poor governance. Okay. I'm cutting you. Just go on.
Okay. Just poor governance. Thank you very much, Kenya. 0719-012-600 or SMS 401270. The social media handle Spice FM KE on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Is it about poor governance? Is it about picking the law and not putting it in the context of the people that you are applying the law on?
if you look at the law and you divorce it from its practicality or how best it can actually be implemented, you will find ourselves with this two-third gender rule situation. See, the gentleman who's just called in is very, very right when he talks about governance, because here you have a situation where we're talking about parents getting their children to contribute to family chores, not because of some, because they want the children to be disciplined, to learn how these things are. Some directly, this labor is required. And
they need
why?
help. Parents need help. Right.
If you think of traditionally, the reason why people have married many wives, why they had many children, one, mortality rate was high. So you wanted to ensure that at least some survived. Number two, these children were part and parcel of your economic development. If you had many boys, it was assumed you had a lot of labor, and then you also had security. If you had many girls, then it also meant that you could increase your wealth. So that thinking may have evolved in a sense, but not completely. Because now you look at children perhaps as a security, yes, but also as security in old age for many people. So it isn't as though we've really moved away. All we've done is we have restructured the way we did what we did previously.
Okay.
And even the countries that have lent us these perspectives, if you look at their countries, like look at the US, look at Canada, they have communities like, say, the Mormons are perhaps the best examples we can give, who actually practice polygamy openly. And they will tell you that according to the statutes of their holy book, all right, for instance, among the Mormons in the US, it is said that you need a minimum of 3 wives. Their understanding is that you should go out and populate the world. Go ye and multiply. In Canada, they have a similar population. They're called the bountiful. Same thing. They practice polygamy openly against known criminal laws that criminalizes polygamy. So there is what you may call traditional religious tradition. You may refer to what we call basic African traditional norms. But the truth is this: what we call our laws must help augment things that are useful not just to the children, but to the society. And that's where our previous caller is right. In the absence of good governance, opportunities will be lacking. In the absence of opportunity, what the parents does may not be sufficient.
So you want to maximize all the labor that you have.
Yes.
Let's go back to the phone lines. Pascal calling in from Malindi. Good morning.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, wonderful team.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Brilliant team, a team that I really respect, a team of integrity. That's how I rate it.
Thank you so much.
I want to be in agreement with my brother from Nakuru, Kinywa, that we really, it's all about the governance of our country.
Yep.
Africa is so rich. Africa as a continent, we are blessed. We have all the resources that should put us to where we ought to be as at now, not where we are. Some years back, Singapore was considered as a third world country. Today, they are so far. What has led to our continent lag this far much behind? All we require is good governance.
Okay.
Put the clergy into task, that they take their responsibility. Put the socio-economic systems into action. Bring the diverse knowledge of well upbringing of our children, and we'll be able to have a society that is where Singapore is today.
Good point.
There will be development from our lifestyles. There will be development from our way of life in totality, and would be able to have standards that are high in accordance to the status that we are in today.
Thank you
We're
very
not
much,
to be
Pascal.
where we are today. We are supposed to be far ahead.
Thank you, Pascal.
So,
Asante sana. Justus in Kilifi, good morning.
Hey, good morning, guys. How are you?
Good,
We're fine,
Justice.
thank
Very
you.
well, thank you, Justice.
You sound very energetic today. I've been listening to you since 6 when you opened.
Mm-hmm.
Very robust discussions.
You sound very energetic as well, Justus.
Thank you. According to what the discussion you're having now, when I send these boys up the Munasi to pick for me some madafu, I'm breaking the law.
Yeah. After school.
Eh? Are you serious? Anyway.
And especially if they miss school to do that. Because it's market day tomorrow and they need
market day. Now
they will argue, Justice, that you're training your children to be Wagema.
Exactly. You see now that the key term there is training.
Mm-hmm.
The key term there is training. Now, some time back, I was lucky enough to be involved in a program called the Elimination of Child Labor through a strategy they were calling creating child-free labor zones by ILO.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the things I learned is that whenever we talk about child labor, because we, as Kenyans, we tend to be lazy in thinking, so that we conflate several things into one. And we give it a very dangerous sounding catchword. Let me try to say, when we talk about child labor, there are two key things you need to distinguish: the work and the dangerous work.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to what we are referring to, especially when the law is referring to criminalizing of child labor, they are especially referring to what is called dangerous work, risky work. For example, prostitution. You know, the case you gave of the Njugus, if the child now proceeds to being sent out of the house to get money for whatever reason, whatever form.
Yeah.
The construction work. Remember those industries in Indonesia where children are supposed to be putting together beads because they have a faster, you know, the way, because the children
their
are
fingers are more nimble.
Yeah. They are nimble, so they are actually exploited more. This and then what is it called? Risky work, for example, exposure to chemicals. You know, why children are used in such industries. That is completely prohibited. But now, remember, let's come back to what parenting is. Parenting is is protecting your child, but also training your child to survive in that environment. And therefore, what it means, this child of mine here, who I'm sending up the Munazi tree, needs to learn that for him to survive here, he needs to have a relation with this Munazi. But where the governance issue comes in, although it was very, very brief, but I understand sometimes you begin and then you get emotional and stop midway the conversation. I liked what you said. The point is that the law which compels parents to ensure that children go to school does not give any excuse. Therefore, it's not about work. It's about parental irresponsibility and children not going to school. And if the parents claim that the children have to be home to work, then one, they are failing responsibility, and two, there is a compelling reason behind it. Are they starving? Now, let me just make a small point. If the child came to school starving, completely starving, he has not eaten for a whole week, and then he fails to turn up to school, who do we hold responsible?
Well, obviously the parents.
We hold, first and foremost, we hold the parent responsible, isn't it?
Yes.
And then second, we need to hold the state responsible. Why is it that parent cannot find food? Isn't it? So coming back, so that I don't get lost, when coming back to the issue of child labor, we need to make those two distinctions. There is training your children to survive in the environment through work training, the key word as CD said. The responsible parenting requires us to train them. For example, if your child is living in, for example, Westlands, you may not take that child to sell fruits in the street, but you'll train that child how to use a computer, how to type, how to do maybe a financial statement, depending on what you are. You can take your child to the office to learn how the office works, depending on your status of life. If I'm a farmer, then I'll take my child to the shamba that day when he's off school, or even before school hours, to learn what to distinguish between a banana and a napier grass. That is not work. It's part of the parenting situation. But what we need to focus on is dangerous work, which puts children at risk. And then also irresponsible parenting. preventing children from going to school while they are where they should be in school. And last example, going to the Western world, in some countries, by the time you turn 18, you're supposed to join the military for basic military training, isn't it? Yet, the UN, the international standards of a child, at 18, you're still a child. If you use the international standards of defining child labor, now which is more dangerous? Me sending my 14-year-old up the nursery, or the person who is sending the child to the military school to fight at the age of 17 and 18. So the contextual, we need to context some of these universal laws. Even our civil society often gets too excited. We need to contextualize them and remember that work is also a process of parenting and training your children to survive in that environment.
Asante sana, Justus. Thank you very much for your contribution. Good points there. I mean, then how do we, because we have a law, and we live in a global community. If, for instance, you living in this context of your own situation, and you're saying, I'm training my children, because I'm training them and I needed extra hands. Tomorrow they could miss school because I needed them to do something. It's part of their training for them to understand that this is what happens on market days.
Or the ones who have not gone, today, the ones who have not gone back to school today because they're in some kind of, there's work that they're doing, right?
Some work.
And for the last 7 months, those who are in custodial positions over them, parents, guardians, are expecting that income. And they have not gone back to school. This is what is being reported now, not a fairy tale. Now, Kenya today. Those ones now who have not gone back to school for that reason, are they in contravention then of the law? You see, that's where it comes in now. Because you never thought that you would come into a real life situation whereby you had to choose between one and the other, right? So it's a significant number of boys in the thousands across the country who've not gone back to school because they've picked up work to do.
But now here's the thing, though. Even as Justus was talking about, this is part of bringing up a child, part of training them. When they take up a job which has certain requirements, reporting time, this is the time to check out, and this is how much you shall earn. That is actually getting into employment. Is that okay for a parent to send their children into employment? If they're children.
That is actually training in the realities of life. When you take laws like the ones we have which protect children and we take them literally and enforce them, we do a wonderful thing. And we must emphasize them. But if we selectively do this and we ignore the very, very laws that we should actually enforce that guarantee opportunities, that guarantees employment, that guarantees a certain equity when it comes to every person having, should we say, breathing space to be able to earn a living, a fair living, and earn also a fair wage. If you don't balance these two, then something is absolutely wrong. Something is absolutely wrong.
But look at it from the context of the child. So yes, those in governance have failed because those opportunities are lacking. The parent is faced with this dire situation, so they are making a decision, and they have made the decision that the child is going to contribute to the income of the family. Look at it from the point of the child. Is it fair to send this child to actually go and work?
Okay.
For employment's sake. So they are going, working at a certain farm. They are working, they're working in a certain shop. They've been employed somewhere, and now schools have been reopened, and they still have a job to do. They're basically workers. Is that fair to the child? Because these children are missing school.
Is it fair to the child to have a parent who cannot feed them because much as they try, they're unable to find employment?
No.
Is it fair to the child to have parents who, much as they try, are not able to actually earn enough to enable them to actually meet the requirements? We say if school is free, uniform isn't. Okay, shoes are not, socks are not. Okay,
it's not fair.
Yes,
it's not fair
so
either.
That's why I brought in the discussion of the balance, because one works well when the other is also supported. Then the balance is created. But in the absence of that balance, we can talk until we are hoarse. Okay. Parents are, if they have children whom they feel are able-bodied and of a certain age, they will be sent to work. Just simple fact. No complication here. Simple fact.
There are no emotions that are involved in
No,
this.
no, no,
Or
just-
consideration of whatever existing law. It's the reality that they're faced with at that time, and they say, okay, well, we don't have enough, and I have, like you said, able-bodied people in my home. Then they're going to work. But the thing is that if they're still at that age where they're considered a child, that the law says you should not.
And there's good reason for that.
Yeah,
There's
the law says you should
absolutely
not.
good reason.
Because this is a child.
And just as outlined it out so beautifully, okay? There is the element of exploitation that comes with someone who is not considered an adult. So indeed, that law is actually purposed to protect. But we are discussing the issue of protection and the issue of livelihood. And we're juxtaposing it, and we're assuming that certain constants are there for this to actually work swimmingly as it ought to.
So we've left the issues of discipline and raising up a child in terms of, picking up certain attributes of responsibility along the way, right? We're now saying that when it comes to survival and you really don't have enough to get by, right? That you would essentially say your children then would help you out. They would go do something where they would earn something. And we have very many examples of some of these jobs around the country. Again, if they're of a certain age, how do you then create the balance? How do you then create the balance that you get to a point where when you say it's okay that my 12-year-old is actually going to take care of this in somebody's company and they're going to give her something which doesn't go into her pocket, we'll come home and we will then use it to feed the rest of the family. It's saying that you shouldn't do that. Because at that age, still so tender, whereas it is a reality for you that you need this money.
It is not a reality.
It is not a reality for that child. It's interfering with the process of her childhood.
Eric, if you go to counties or regions in this country where people grow tea or coffee, it was normal for children to understand how tea is picked.
Of course. And coffee.
Normal. If you live in a part of the world where people have cows, you will know how to plow milk and how to plow using bulls. You learn all those things as a boy. You learn those things. All right? Now, we've had this debate with regards to our cash crops for the longest time, the issue of value addition. You brought it up nicely when you give the example of Rwandan coffee. All right? When you talk about countries that actually export something like coffee, when you do your research, what will surprise you is that there is no African country in the top 10. We produce coffee, but top 10.
We're not anywhere.
No. Yes, number 3 is Switzerland. They export coffee to the tune of 3.5 billion. Germany, Italy. Now, all I'm trying to say is this. Why? They buy it, add value to it, twist it around and do all the fancy things and give it all these names that we keep reading about. And suddenly that thing costs a lot more. And we, who produce it, remain languishing. The value added, and as you correctly put it, Eric, earlier on, when you look at that chain, at the end of that chain, there's this person called a farmer. Now, if that farmer can benefit from his produce in the best way he possibly can, then that farmer will also have workers. Just look at that train and how it moves on. This discussion we're having will be a completely different discussion, simply because governance has been brought to play and this thing called value addition has been given the seriousness it deserves.
Time for us to take another break and allow our audience on KTN Home to move to other programming. We want to thank you very much for tuning in on KTN Home, the Situation Room, from 7 a.m. to now, 8 minutes to 9. Join us again tomorrow on KTN Home, 7 to 9. This conversation continues and happens every weekday morning from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. This is a Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. It's on Spice FM, Malindi 97.7, Nakuru 96.0, Eldoret 96.7, Kisumu 102.5, 87.9 in Mombasa, 94.4 in Nairobi. And we live stream the show on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter. Our handle is SpiceFMKE. See you tomorrow, KTN Home.
Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
All right, so as we continue, let's look at the winners for this beautiful gift hamper by the new KCC Gold Crown lactose-free milk that you can go and buy. And we were asking today the sizes that the Gold Crown lactose milk comes in. We have 2 winners picked by our social media producer, Mr. Brian Amulioto. Bella She says it comes in 3 sizes as follows: 250 milliliters, 500 milliliters, and 1 liter. And we also get Dre Prezi. The sizes are the pocket-friendly pack, 500 milliliter, the family pack, 1 liter, and the convenient pack of 250 milliliters. Congratulations to the two of you. You are going to be called by Mr. Brian Amulioto. He'll get in touch with you and he'll tell you how you get your gift hamper from the new KCC. Remember, you can get the Gold Crown lactose-free milk from any shop across the country and very many supermarkets, a number of supermarkets where we're running a promotion. And this is Naivas, Carrefour, Quickmart, Ketias, and Chandarana. In these supermarkets across the country, if you go to them, you'll be able to participate in this promotion. If you buy 1 UHT or Gold Crown value pack, you get a 1 liter of lactose-free milk. If you buy 1 carton, that's 12 pieces of lactose-free milk, you get 2 extra 500 ml packets of the Gold Crown lactose-free milk. Congratulations once again to our winners this morning. So, issue of children, child labor, and what happens in the balance. You've brought it out very well and said it's about opportunities. Lack of opportunity forces parents to use the resources that they have at their disposal. Government comes in, and government through the regional commissioner, through the president into the regional commissioner. You've heard RC Natembea saying, listen, those children, I want them in school tomorrow. It doesn't matter whether they are taking up a job. It doesn't matter what was happening. I want them in school tomorrow. Then would you say, if you just go by Mr. Natembea applying the law and you living your reality, that Natembea is then infringing on your reality? Or is being unfair? Would the government be unfair by saying, let the children go to school?
No.
Find alternative ways of earning
this income that
getting
you were
this
using
income
them to
and
earn.
feeding your family.
Is Mr. Natembea is a commissioner, is he not?
He is the regional commissioner.
Yes, exactly. I think he's doing his duty and he's doing it well. It's in making such declarations that the reality of the situation that families face can come to the fore. You issue the edict and you then determine, have children gone to school? Then you ask the pertinent question, why haven't
they gone to school? And then you find out that this is what is happening.
Yes. But
right?
you have to start by saying, excuse me, school. Okay? No ifs and buts, school. And part of the reason is it is also understood that there are parents who may not be in the sort of impecunious situation that we were referring to earlier on, but they simply do not see the importance of children going to school.
This is what I was going to say, that as we have this conversation, I've come to the realization that this reality is not present for very many people. As you talk about it being a contravention of the law, as you talk about it being something that shouldn't actually feature when it comes to the socialization or the process of childhood for any child, it's the farthest thing from their minds. First of all, children are not there for them, they're here for me. That's one reality. The other thing is that, like Siti said, it's not that I don't have a choice. But here there are able-bodied people in my house from the age of 10. You can do. You're able to work. So it would be essentially death if I allowed you to go to school whereby things could be done here that could bring us some kind of income. It's not people's reality at all. And you realize that it's not people's reality when such announcements are made, when they said, get up and go to school. They shouldn't be sitting in your house. They shouldn't be on a farm somewhere. They shouldn't be in an industry somewhere picking cotton or whatever. They should be in school. And then you come to the realization that people are sending their children to school because they do not have 1, 2, 3. But the law says regardless of the fact that you do not have, your children should not be the ones that should be used to bring that income to you. Find another alternative.
The law is the law, and the law means well. And that's why whenever this discussion of the law comes into play, we talk about the spirit of the law and the letter of the law. Okay. Now, as a layman, the way I understand this is this. This is what it says, okay? But this is how it works. The spirit comes into how it actually works. We know that changa is banned. It is not allowed.
Yeah.
And yet, if you go to many funerals in my neck of the wood, people drink changa. And it's not as though they hide. It comes in 5-liter jerry cans and people drink it in copious amounts. Okay? The law has banned it. all right? The spirit in its operation, I mean, pun intended here, of course, okay? That people will consume it. And these are funerals where you will find even the chief of the area is present. Law enforcement officers are present, but no one hides it. But outside the arena of the funeral, you will find that those who produce it are also not arrested. They're even known to be the producers. So,
coming to the top of the hour, this is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room. We thank you very much for constantly giving us your input by calling in 0719-012-600 or the comments on social media, Spice FM KE, on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, and also on SMS line 40127. We continue with more conversations in the next hour. Remember that this show broadcasts every morning from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. We are on KTN Home from 7 to 9, but we continue on radio throughout the 4 hours. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. It's now 9 o'clock.
Spice up your life. 94.4 Spice FM.
Okay,
Nairobi.
so it's looking a little bit better on Mombasa Road, guys. Coming into the city, not so much. Rather, it's opening up, so it's not bumper to bumper. There's still some space now. There is some space rather now between you and the next vehicle. Okay, we hope that it gets better as we go through the day, but it's still looking like the one that's going to cause us some problems. Did you use the bypass today, Southern or Eastern? No problems there, right? Right. Coming off of Thika Road, though, in and out of the CBD, it's a bit slow, but it's flowing. It's flowing a lot smoother on Jogo Road. Kiambu Road this morning, the stage everywhere, Kiambu Road was not good. And that's still giving up some bad vibes this morning, getting onto Thika Road. It'll open up soon enough, though, so not to worry about that. Spice FM KE, get in touch should you get stuck, or text us on 40127.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Nduh Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
2.5 minutes after 9 o'clock, it's Kenya's biggest conversation as we're beginning the new hour. Remember, this is the final hour of the show, and we'll be asking you to participate and contribute. C.T. Muga, as we come into this new hour, today's proverb.
if you do not travel, you will marry your own sister. Remember, I'm not saying may, will.
If you do not travel, you will marry your own sister.
If you do not open your
She's
mind.
the only beautiful woman you'll see around.
Kabisa, if you do not travel through your mind, if you don't allow your mind to be adventurous, you will commit an abomination.
All right. There's a bill that's before the Nairobi County Assembly, and this is by Riruta Ward Rep James Kiriba. This bill is called the Nairobi City County Public Nuisance Bill 2020. This is just trying to replace some bylaw that used to be there when the Nairobi was just a Nairobi City Council. And it's looking at how then do we ensure that there's public order and there's no public nuisance. Spitting on a footpath or blowing one's nose anywhere other than into a suitable cloth or tissue in Nairobi will earn one a 6-month jail term or a 10,000 shillings fine or both if this bill goes through. The same punishment will befall anyone who knowingly leaves off prostitution. Defecating or urinating on a street or open space, as well as lighting fires on a road or street without authority of the county secretary, will be a punishable offence. This bill defines public nuisance as an act or omission that causes common injury, damage, or annoyance to the public or to the people who dwell or occupy property in the vicinity of the act. Looking at that, and just remembering what we saw from the director of the Nairobi Metropolitan Services, Major General Badi, the other day, when he said, look, we want to bring a piece of legislation that compels all residents of Nairobi and all people who will be within the Nairobi Metropolitan to have mandatory cleaning of their neighborhood once every month.
Yes.
So certain designated day, designated time where there's nothing else that you're doing. You get up, get out, clean your environment, go back home. Then you can now go ahead and become a nuisance for the next 1 month until the next
for the next 30 days.
Yes, until this comes up again. It's not new. When you hear this and then you remember there are many other countries that have already implemented this, even within the continent. Rwanda is a classic example. Nigeria, is it in all states?
Every state in the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the first Saturday of the month, between 6 a.m. and 11 a.m., you clean up your area. It's called environmental sanitation. ES, everybody knows. You leave your area, you're on the street, you can get arrested. Or at least ask a stern question in terms of, what are you doing here when you're supposed to be cleaning up? You clean up your area, keep it clean, and then you may go about your business. Nobody bothers you. But
So
clean up your spaces.
Do people do this?
People actually do.
So people get out of their homes to get onto the street to clean?
No, not in the street, because that is then for the purview of, that is the responsibility of the state. Public spaces, the states will still clean up on a daily basis.
Okay.
Right? The state government will do that. But your surroundings, your area, not just your house, but around your area, you will clean
Your
up.
compound.
Yeah, and even outside, you'll clean up. The area surrounding you and your home, you'll clean up. But like public
Is there
street,
a roll call? I mean, how do you ensure that the people of that house have come out? Is there a roll call? Is there enforcement? Are there local authorities who are coming and knocking and saying, who is in this house? Get out.
well,
Have you cleaned?
not necessarily. I think more over the years it has become more in thought than in actual deed, because the assumption is you're not out in the streets going about your Saturday morning business because you're in your area cleaning up.
So shops are closed, markets are
Yes,
closed,
shops are
offices
closed, markets are closed. They open at 11 o'clock on the first Saturday of every month. They open at 11 o'clock,
By
and
the
not
way,
before that.
Actually, that makes perfect sense. You see, if you shut the shops, you shut economic activity, then you also reduce movement. But it also means that on that day, people don't go to work. That all work starts at 11.
Yes. The point I'm wondering is, so you've come up with a law and you've said shut, but how do you encourage people to actually see this is for my benefit? Do people internalize that and say, I shall do this?
Interestingly enough,
I
people
shall
actually,
come out on this
that's
day.
the funny
That's
thing,
the day
because
we're doing.
yeah, even us growing up as children, we knew that it was one Saturday, and that the state is encouraging you, the country is essentially encouraging you to be clean, to maintain certain levels of cleanliness and responsibility. Before I
give an opinion, let me just ask: were the results what was anticipated?
Actually, yes. When it started out, because it's something that started in the late 80s towards going. Yeah, late 80s, early
previous century.
Yeah, I remember I was very young, and it was that you knew that you would clean up. I know what you're doing. It would be that you would clean up your surroundings, and people actually would clean up. Even people who anticipated to open shops would get into town earlier, but you would actually see
the whole country.
Yes,
Who started
every
this?
state.
Is it Buhari when he was?
Every state, Babangida.
It was Babangida.
Babangida, yeah. Every state. So I mean through the Ministry of Environment, but it was at every state, and this was a law. It's a law.
Okay.
So you see people cleaning up the areas where they have their shops and things like this, and cleaning up. Now it's not as serious, but it's still a standing law.
Okay.
Yeah.
So are we saying that if we went to Nigeria, across the country, it's a very clean environment? Because there's regular, proper cleaning that everybody comes out to clean. And during the rest of the days, the local authorities are doing what they're supposed to be doing, cleaning.
Your
So
surroundings.
ordinarily, it would be a very clean place, is Nigeria.
Ordinarily.
in your surroundings
Ordinarily.
on the first Saturday of the
If people
month.
internalize, as you put it, you wouldn't need to wait for that Saturday. It is something you'd be doing just as a matter of course.
Of habits.
Yes. And you then would not have the burden, neither would it be burdensome. It would be just this additional thing that you do to what you already do.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it goes beyond just the law, but also selling it to the people.
Yeah,
so that the
hoping
people
they
understand
imbibe this.
and they take it as this is my responsibility. So you're telling the people who litter that it's okay. Don't just litter and then come say, I see, this Saturday is the first Saturday. So we'll clean it. What's the problem? Because then that's the mindset. Why is it that the environment is dirty now? It's for a number of things. One of them, of course, is the lack of proper bins and all, and proper sanitation services by the local authorities. But there's also human habit. The habit by the people to litter the environment, the habit by the people to not keep the environment clean. Is that going to be changed by a law that says that every first Saturday of the month, come out, all ye Nairobi residents, Nairobi metropolitan residents, that goes all the way into Kitengela, into Ngong, all of you, on this day, clean.
Clean your house. What exactly is the NMA boss
Clean your
saying?
environment. I guess it's similar to exactly what you're saying, or what happens in
now
Rwanda.
To specifics. What constitutes my environment?
Because it could be my house or my compound, and then, beyond my...
Just
Or
to
your
understand.
Or your bedroom.
That's my environment. So it has to be clear.
Or the area around the chair I like sitting in.
That's my environment for the whole of Saturday, man.
My environment every day.
Pick up the paper and throw it in the dustbin.
I mean, are they specific? Let me explain why I ask. If we implement this kazi mtaani and mjengo mashinani, where will they fit in? Because this is what they have been known to be doing for some time now.
Those ones are coming to an end in a few days' time. But this has been inculcated in them. It's expected that when they go back into the community, they reintegrate and they go back to those habits of just knowing that you clean your environment. Wherever you're operating, the Major General Badi has not defined what exactly he wants to see in terms of what constitutes your environment. What are you supposed to do? Are you then being told that you're going to be given wheelbarrows and slashers and brooms? It's not clear what's going to happen. But let's just take it from the basics of what we see in other parts of the world. It's the area near you, your neighborhood, your estate. Come out, clean, take care of the trash, take care of the garbage. Local authorities come, they collect, they take it to the landfills or wherever the garbage is being taken. And that's what happens. Now, is this making the people do what we are paying taxes for? Why are we paying these people?
Which people?
See, Nairobi City County workers.
Eric, you're a little behind time. Garbage disposal in this country, when was the last time you saw a county vehicle or something doing that very work that you're talking about?
County has given licenses to private companies. There's a PPP. The responsibility still lies with these people that we have elected as the managers of the county and the people that we have employed through the taxes that we pay.
Well, take it that the county is giving us license also.
I think there's an element of... It could be that, there are two sides to this. If you look at it, it will say, okay, fine. The county is shirking the responsibility when it comes to the cleanliness and, the upkeep of the environment. At the same time, the county then hopes that they would instill these values of cleanliness, and taking care of the environment in the minds of, residents of the NMA. So it could be two sides. But, I would want to go with that the county is hoping that people take it, as a kind of personal responsibility when it comes to the care of the environment. Would that be far-reaching in that mode of thought to say that maybe Badi and the fellows, Badi and his buddies are saying that, it's a good idea for people to actually take this responsibility and say, the environment, I have a part to play as well. And the only way to bring that about is to make it mandatory and hope along the way that people will see this as a responsibility that they should take up and fly with.
I'm going to go back to something that I always say here. It is in theory, it is an excellent, not a good, It's an excellent idea. But this is the sort of thing you want to inculcate in even young children when they're in school. Let's start there. Having said that, moving swiftly forward, if you look at what is actually being suggested, in my opinion, it is something which, if implemented, should create a certain value system and a certain understanding. Now, why did I ask for the details? For the longest time, it is known in this country, this is specifically to men, that you don't just pee anywhere you like.
Is it known?
Yes, but it is known and ignored. We've seen pictures in social media of individuals where there's a clear sign on a wall. You are not allowed to urinate here by law. And there's somebody doing precisely that on that very wall. Okay?
On the sign itself.
Now, why have I chosen this? It's because there are those who've argued that if the government had put up facilities that enable you to meet this call of nature in a decent and honorable way, you would not need to disobey this particular law. Okay? Then there are those who argue that these are habits people come with from rural settings where it is the most natural thing to simply look for the nearest vegetation to perform this act of nature. Okay? Now, the argument notwithstanding, you're asking people not to throw paper. If, again, I may use Kenyanese, anyhowly. Okay? You're asking people not to spit anyhowly. You're asking them not to throw cigarette butts if they smoke.
Defecate or urinate.
Thank you. Along those lines. You ask them not to do these things publicly.
Yes.
Okay. Now, if you want it to work, tell them.
No, if you want it to work, do your job. Do your job by providing the bins. Do your job by providing public toilets. Would you think that somebody would ignore a public toilet here and go and urinate on a wall there?
Yes, Kenyans
because
can do,
this toilet is dirty. If it was a clean, functioning toilet, they would go to the toilet. If it was a clean, functioning toilet that does not have long queues, they would go to the toilet. That's why they don't do that in their homes. They have a toilet. They know they're the ones who clean it. This is...
Eric, you've got it.
Do your job.
They are the ones who clean it.
Yes,
so
they clean their toilet. So they know it's clean.
You would better use it well, because you're the one who's going to clean it.
If I have paid for services from the Nairobi City County government or from the national government, I better get my services. Don't start telling me, oh, you know what, I cannot provide you with the toilet and I don't want you to obey the call of nature. What are you telling me to do? You cannot tell me, oh, don't dump papers anyhowly, and you're not showing me what I should do. So where do you want me to throw my trash? Provide me the dustbin. Because of the failure of the government to provide the services, then it's coming to tell us what it's supposed to do. And now you want to make it mandatory that I shall come out and do the job that I'm paying you to do?
Yes.
I am objecting to that. I'm saying, no way. Nairobi County, you do the job. I have paid the taxes. You decide whether you want to do it once a month or you want to do it daily. I just want to have clean environments.
You clearly have refused to take the broad perspective and view of public participation. This is it.
So let's all do it together.
I will participate by making sure that when I have trash, I'll go to the nearest dustbin, I will throw it there. Beyond that, can you go and collect that trash on a daily basis? You cannot then come and tell me that on Saturday, come to this place that you guys have created in the estate as your dustbin and then start collecting that. What is your job?
To tell you what to do.
A pan. Let's take a break and let's take
Eric needs to breathe.
Look at the weather. 17 minutes after 9. This is Kenya's biggest conversation.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Spice FM. Njeri.
okay. It's mostly cloudy in Nairobi at 19 degrees. It'll go to high of 26 today. Still in the forecast, looking at possible rains later. Highs of 24 and lows of 14 in Njeri today. It's mostly cloudy at 18. And 18 degrees and partly cloudy in Nakuru. Highs of 24 and lows of 12. And it looks like showers are in the offing. 17 degrees and mostly cloudy in Eldoret. Highs of 22 and lows of 12 with thunderstorms expected later. Kisumu is partly cloudy at 23. It's warming up and it'll go to a high of 28 today and lows of 19 with showers expected later. Kakamega is partly cloudy at 21 degrees, highs of 26 and lows of 15 today and a chance of rains. Let's take a look at Mombasa where it's mostly cloudy at 29 degrees, highs of 30 and lows of 24 and also looking like a sprinkle later in the afternoon. It was raining in Malindi. That has stopped. It's mostly cloudy and the rain will come back. Highs of 29 and lows of 26. Kampala is mostly cloudy at 21. Highs of 24 and lows of 18 today with a chance of thunderstorms later on. Okay, Dar es Salaam is partly cloudy at 28 degrees. It'll go to a high of 31 and lows of 23, and it looks like showers in the afternoon as well. Joburg is mostly sunny today, and it's warming up quite some. 18 degrees at the moment, going to highs of 25 and lows of 11. And in Lagos, the rains continued. Scattered thunderstorms have come back. 29 degrees, that'll be the high today, and lows of 23, and the rain will go well into Thursday. In Beijing, it's mostly sunny at 16. Highs of 17 and lows of 6 today as they go into the evening. And then taking a look into London, it's clear at 9, highs of 14, and the rain will come in to take away those sunny conditions and come down to a low of 8. Paris is cloudy at 9 degrees, highs of 14 and lows of 8, and a chance of rains later on. And let's wrap things up in the Big Apple, where it's now Wednesday morning, clear skies at 13. It'll rise to a high of 22 and lows of 12.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Begins with you, me, and you. And that is the mantra that the Nairobi Metropolitan Services Director General, Major General Badi, wants to bring into law.
You know, there's the assumption that we must put up with all the filth and all the trash all over the place. Just like there's the assumption that we must put up with all the law-breaking maneuvers that the matatu industry entertains us with every single day. One of the things that John Michuki did was he showed the country what was possible. First, the matatu industry, the very thing that people thought was not possible, he said, it was possible. Then they took him to an environment where in fact, the reason why you can't remember who was there before Michuki is because there's very little, apart from knowing there was a ministry and that there's a minister, there's nothing you could remember them by. One activity, cleaned up Nairobi River. He actually did. That showed us what was possible. So now, when we have, and you remember those were the days before public participation. Okay. Now, here we have the good general coming up with a similar idea. He's bringing forth to us this idea that this city can actually be clean. Really, genuinely clean.
Yeah.
And the environment which you live in your own locale, can also be very, very clean. And see, with cleanliness comes safety.
Yes.
With safety and cleanliness comes the absence of diseases. Okay?
Yes.
So, I think the fine gentleman has done a good thing in telling us and showing us what is possible.
Be part of the process.
How is he showing us what is possible?
By stating it. Yes.
John Gakuo, when he was the
town
clerk for Nairobi, he brought in the bins. He increased the bins. He increased the number of bins.
Eric, he has just stated it, surely. Have we given him a month to see whether the bins have been put in place or not?
So he's not demonstrating it.
Wait, you state it first, then you demonstrate.
He's starting by telling us that it's going to be mandatory for us. See, why can't he just, first of all, ensure that there are bins?
So what you're suggesting
ensure they're
is
functioning
that
public toilets. And then tell us, you see, now this is what we expect.
So before bringing the cart, bring the horse. So we see the horse. So when they're talking about what the horse is supposed to do, then bring in the cart, then we put two and two together.
Yes.
That's what you say, yes.
And hopefully we'll move sideways. I mean,
Look, it's a good thing. Obviously, it's implemented in all other parts of the world. It's a good thing that you involve the citizenry in the cleanliness of the environment. All right? But at the same time, those governments realize and they recognize the role that they have to play. That on a daily basis, you have a department within the Nairobi City County government or the Nairobi Metropolitan Services that is in charge of environment, that goes all out there and does its job. Then come and say, now, let's work together in this. Here is where you're supposed to dump. Go and dump there. We will come and collect it.
Eric,
here is where you're supposed to go and defecate or just obey the rule of nature. What's it called? Law of nature.
Rule, law, same thing.
That one. That one. This is the facility. Go to that facility. Let's work together. We shall ensure it's clean. We shall ensure it's functioning. We shall ensure that it's safe environment for you. Then now there we're saying we're working together. So if you tell me once in a month, then can you come out now because we just want in our normal spirit of Harambee, we have this, can we now ensure that if anything we had missed during the course of the month, we clean it up, fine. What I'm hearing is none of that. What I'm hearing is, once a month you'll be getting up.
When was this declaration made?
It's last week when he said now he's hoping, it's not long. He's saying he's hoping that they're going to come and introduce a piece of legislation. Then now we'll make it law that you shall be doing this.
Now, Eric, the bill is before the assembly. Okay?
Not yet. There's no bill yet. In fact.
Right. So, you want the dustbins to come ahead of all these things?
Yes.
I don't think it's a bad idea to float the possibility to people in the country. Okay, we're not talking about the country. We're just talking about right now about the NMA. I don't think there's any danger in floating it and saying, look, let's all share this responsibility when it comes to the environment and how clean it actually can be. There's nothing wrong with, being a tad cleaner. You can imagine, okay, so you're telling people don't dump, but how many people continue to dump? Driving in traffic and you see people are throwing things out of windows, throwing things out of matatus, walking along the street and dumping it there. So essentially, I would see it more as everybody playing a part, collective responsibility then when it comes to protecting the environment. And maybe that is what, sure, it would make the job easier on the part of the government, but at the same time, it's a lesson that's learned across board that you can actually do a fantastic job of cleaning your environment. And even in that sense where you say, okay, dump it here and we'll pick it up. How many people do dump it there? You have people who dump things just next to a dustbin, for crying out loud.
Can you do all that without a law? Can you actually go to the people?
Can you make the suggestion and say?
Yes, can you actually go to the people and sell the idea, leading by example, sell the idea, and then it just becomes a habit not law.
By putting signs
because
around?
when you make it a law and saying this is mandatory, the next thing you're going to do, you're going to try and be enforcing. Get out of your house.
Take a trip around Nairobi streets where you say no dumping here. There's an arrow, and right under the arrow is a pile. Heap of rubbish. And there's a sign that says no dumping here.
By the time there's a heap of rubbish, it's because the authorities have failed. They should be going around and collecting the garbage. It's because that dustbin that was put there is full beyond full, and now people have started dumping next to the bin because somebody has failed. And now you're coming to tell me by law, by force, you shall be waking up
your
everybody
environment
and go and clean
your surroundings
and go and clean that heap of garbage. Where are you? Why am I paying you?
Clean your surroundings. I don't think there's anything wrong with cleaning your surroundings. I don't think there's anything wrong about being environmentally responsible.
Nothing wrong.
I don't think so.
Just start by doing your job, and then we shall do it together. Let's go to the phone lines because you can have a number of callers coming in. Mohammed in Mokijembe, good morning.
Good morning, sir. Ongwana, assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Walaikum salam, bwana.
Mmeamkaje kwa kufungua macho au kwa kuinua maguu?
Ndio.
Hapo
kwa kuchamua.
Mtu anaamka kwa kufungua macho bwana.
Bwana, habari ya kupotea lakini.
Mimi niko nawasikiza lakini saa nyingine wasipendi kuachemsha.
Mbona?
Ni mwenyewe tu ile mood yangu. Unajua kuna geje hapa kwangu. Ndio inasababisha mimi. Lakini yule anateremsha geje yangu chini ni huyu Madam Nduh huyo. Hiyo hata mimi nafikiria nyanyake ni Queen Elizabeth huyo.
Mzungu. Sasa lakini Mohamed,
Yes, sir.
Cleaning of the environment.
Cleaning. Naja, I'm coming there to the, the mindset. Mindset across the board. Responsible mindset, hygienically mindset, morally mindset, environmentally mindset. Hiyo mindset itamaliza kazi yote, lakini tutazungumza mpaka hiyo voice takuwa hoarse kama alivyosema mwalimu hapo. Utafanya, utalazimisha, akatoa mfano wa Changaa, ni sheria iko hapo, lakini mindset bado ya kuimplement mambo hakuna. Yote iko kwa mindset tu. Tutazunguka usiku na mchana, we'll never come up with any solution or any tangible result hivi. We tackle the mindset my waungwana. Kama kuna mbinu yoyote ya kutackle mindset, kazi inakuwa mboga mchicha. Kwa ndio nachangia kiasi hicho leo.
Asante sana Mohamed, have a good day.
Na nyinyi pia mbarikiwe.
Asante.
Okay, bye sir.
As we take a break, we'd like to take your calls 0719-012-600. That's 0719-012-600 or SMS 40127. Do you support the move by Major General Badi of the Nairobi Metropolitan Service to have a law that mandates everybody within the Nairobi Metropolitan Service to come out once every month or periodically on a mandatory environment cleaning day? Do you support that move by the good Major General? It's coming up to 9:30. Let's see what's happening on the roads, and then we'll pick your calls. 0719-012-600.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Okay, looking much better on the roads this hour, guys. Coming off of Mombasa Road, we didn't have much of an issue now, but we know that the traffic will continue a little bit like this throughout the day. Okay, it's not going to be a bumper to bumper situation like we saw before, but it's still going to be slow. This is because of the construction, guys, on Mombasa Road. Expect this throughout the day, and then it'll probably get back to higher levels in the evening. Outbound. Okay, so officially out of traffic hour now, and also on Thika Road is looking much better getting into the CBD. Spice FMKE on Twitter or text us on 40127.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
9:30, the conversation continues. Let's go back to the phone lines. Lydia in Parklands, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for this important subject. This is our daily life every day.
Yep.
You talked about defecating and urinating. Those who urinate in the sun and defecate in the sun, instantly it dries, the smell is all gone, the germs are all killed by the sun, and it's done. But in Mandera, they have bucket systems. And when nobody's looking, they take all those buckets and pour them in the riverside or lake. This is not right. So defecating in the hot sun, where it dries up, takes away all the smell immediately, and everything is into powder, into manure. That seems to be healthier than bucket system. Or the flush, just to urinate, they pour so much of Harpic, and Harpic all goes down to the ground, and then it purifies the water through the mud, and that's our drinking water.
Yeah.
Does that look
Lydia,
right?
do you support this move by the boss of the Nairobi Metropolitan Service to have one day every month where it's mandatory, you come out and clean your environment?
It's okay, but they should teach to say, if you are seen dropping your garbage on the street, you will be arrested. If you're seen doing that. You eat a sweet, you drop your plastic down on the street, you will be arrested. That is where they should start from us.
All right. Asante.
Smokes, throws it down. Eats a sweet, eats a biscuit, throws the plastic down on the street. That's not right.
Thank you, Lydia. Seeing also the comments on social media, George Ogola says this should be replicated in the entire country. According to TM Brown Obi says this is a useless copy-pasting approach. Carl Lavi Avram says that gentleman, Major General Badi is doing a great job. And Candy Muragori says, yes, they support this move. Do you support the move by the Nairobi Metropolitan Services boss, Major General Badi, to have mandatory cleaning day in Nairobi? 0719-012-600 or SMS 40127, or also on our social media, Spice FMKE on Facebook, on YouTube, on Instagram, and on Twitter. Yep. So as we wait for the calls, Nduh, you've seen it in Nigeria all those years. There's the excitement of it. Has it taken away the responsibility of the local authorities to do their job?
No, because, like I said, the state governments still have the responsibility of cleaning up on public roads and public areas, right? So they still do that.
Are they clean, those public roads and public areas?
They are, actually. This is,
So Nigeria is clean.
Of all the failings, of all the failings of the government, I think, this is one thing that they've actually been able to take seriously. I wouldn't say, look, it's not clean the way you would want it to be. Not all.
All right. Compare any of the cities, Lagos, with Kigali.
No, you couldn't compare. But I would compare Kigali and Abuja. And I would say they would stand face to face.
Okay.
I would compare Abuja and Kigali. I'd like that. Lagos is just, a small city with 20 million people. It's in terms of geographic space and compared to the number of people that it has in terms of population, it's small. Lagos is by no means with the years when the most recent governor, the previous governor was there, when now you wouldn't see things like flowers growing in the city of Lagos, and then Fashola came in and cleaned up Lagos. This was one of the things that he insisted on. People taking responsibility for making sure the city was clean. And you actually
But he
saw...
led by example by actually getting the job done.
Yeah. And you saw Lagos go through what was a facelift. Beautiful. It was not possible in the early 2000s. Actually, that was the thing. His government came in truly and did lead by example. I would say that was one of the governors in Nigeria that you saw go the Mishuki way and actually show this thing can be done. Whereby the narrative previously was saying that Lagos was a dirty town that had waterways running through it, could absolutely not be clean. Came in and cleaned up the city and said, now that I've cleaned it up, let's maintain it.
Let's maintain it. All right, let's go back to the phone lines. Ed Gitonga in Njeri, good morning.
Morning, Eric. How are you doing, guys?
We're well, thank you.
Now, once upon a time, Nakuru was a very clean town. Now, the thing is, it's not about whether we support or we don't support. It's about, do you think it's really going to work? Because the reason why it's not going to work is because the same people who are arrogant in dumping and obeying simple instructions as far as no dumping is concerned, are the same people you are telling to clean up. It doesn't. It's not logical.
Okay.
If somebody can ignore something that's well written on stone, and then you tell me that same person is gonna wake up on one day and go do some cleaning. Mind you, there was the Kazi Mtani project that's still going on, and the guys are supposed to be cleaning up. And I can tell you, for example, here in Njeri, all they do is stand up somewhere, chat, ikifika masaa ya saa sita hivi, we just go home. Or maybe they should be cleaning.
Ed, thank you.
Your
line is a bit noisy,
so people you're telling me.
Well, we hear you. Asante sana for your contribution. Let's go to now that formerly clean town of Nakuru. Zachary.
Oh, hi.
How are you?
Oh, hi.
Oh, fine, thank you. How have you been, you guys?
We've been well, Zachary.
We've been very well.
We're getting to that point
Oh,
where we're about to start getting worried.
Oh no, I thought someone was to call me and they ask, "Oh, where are you? Where are you?" But let me say that for the past 2 months, since the time I told you I lost my child, wow, I lost another very, very close member of my extended family, a young man also.
Okay.
So it's a long story. This COVID is actually hitting hard on us, yeah.
Pole sana.
But I've been following you, yeah.
Okay.
And I'm okay. I'm quite okay now. The issue of the general is good. In fact, it's good, yeah.
Yep.
And I would want to support him by saying this. Okay, I hope you guys have used you use probably the matatu vehicles, yeah.
Yeah.
And you find that the matatu is fully packed, and the actually opening the windows is a big order. You find that people don't want to open windows, yeah? And then most of the times when I board a matatu, I ask people, do you want the government also to come and open windows for you? Why was that window put there for you? You see? So this issue of that I'll do this because somebody else will come and clean my sheet, it should not be fair. That when I take my sweet or my caddy, and I don't care, I throw the wrapper in hurry, because I expected that, somebody else, Kina Eric, Kina Mwalimu will come, I pay them to do this. No. It should not be like that. And also, look at the general. The general is trained to give orders. He knows orders, yeah? And that is why you see that when he says that I'm going to pay this to pay this payment, yeah? It is done because there's no negotiation. It is done. So I actually support him when he says we should have a law that actually makes everyone who is a member of Nairobi or any other town, yeah, to set aside one day so that we come and have a public cleaning. It's a communal thing, and it's very good because it's for our own good.
Good. All right, Zachary.
Yeah, and I will have a nice day.
You too,
Thank
Zachary.
you.
Thank you.
Going to Kisumu, Daniel, good morning.
Good morning, Eric Nduh and City Muga, my best friend.
Good morning.
And how are you this morning, my equally best friend?
I'm okay. It's shining in Kisumu.
Yes.
And everything is okay.
Lovely.
Yes. Going to the topic, with Kenya, I'm just tired with these I can say they are roadside policies. What informed the general's decision on at least putting, he has told us when, but how is this thing going to be done without public health implications? Because cleaning environment is okay, is a good initiative, but suppose in some quarters, let's say a place like Kibera, the trench over there, you want to clean the environment. So it's incumbent upon the city government to at least do a proper drainage for these people also to clean their environment. But for those people, there's the public health concern that I want to talk about is that these people are going to the environment, cleaning the environment. We are in the COVID time. How trained are they? Handle this maybe the waste that are like the mask, these things that maybe can be infectious. So I think there could have been a proper public health information to the people first before people go expose themselves to the environment.
All right, and I suppose that is something that they should. The law is still not operational. I mean, there's no law yet. There is no regulation that's mandating people to do this, but maybe some of the feedback that you're giving now is what is going to help them as they craft the regulations, the modalities, the how to, the when, the what support the NMS is going to be offering the people.
Yes,
But good points.
Exactly.
Good points, Daniel. Asante sana.
Thank you.
Cheke Wandongo says, yes, I support the general, but first he should ensure that we have garbage disposal places, public toilets, clean and safe and also other facilities in place. Odero Cordero Johnson says, it's a great move by the general. I support 100%. Cleanliness is next to godliness. Daniel says the general should know that we are not military cadets, nor are we under dictatorship. Kenya has people paid with our taxes to do this job.
Very true. But also remember that what the laws do, they introduce uniformity. We are not all of the same mind or preferences. And when you leave it to us to determine or to decide what we want to do, that variety will not give us the desired results. So it is important that, should we say, certain guidelines are put in place so you know this is what is expected, this is what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Yes.
But then, you see, we already have these laws. For example, now this bill that I was just talking about, that's before the County Assembly of Nairobi, the Public Nuisance Bill that talks about, tells you cannot just spit anyhowly, you cannot blow your nose anyhowly into anything, you cannot ride a motorcycle or drive on a footpath, you cannot defecate or urinate on a street or open space, you cannot just light fires. This is already setting the standards. Don't do this. And then the expectation is that the Department of Government that is supposed to ensure that there is cleanliness is also doing its job. If you do this and they do that, then we don't have to have this one day of coming to clean the environment.
No, there's also another benefit, I realize. You get to know who your neighbors are.
True, and I think that what it also does
So
is
it becomes a social event.
It is a social event.
Again, it contributes to the responsibility that you take for cleanliness. And then I think, all of us have a duty when it comes to the protection of the environment, which we already know that, the throwing of garbage and all these other terrible things, then, contributes to. When you throw garbage and you're contributing to the degradation of the environment. So about how everybody taking responsibility, because it may not have been you who threw the little piece of paper, but you still have to live here, right? So I think that there's a part that should be played, a role that should be played, in as much as it is the job of the county authorities to make sure that this is done. There's a responsibility that comes along with actually sharing the same space, and that could be something that could override all of this. It's your job, it's your responsibility. I pay the taxes. It's okay, very good. However, you live here, right? So there's some kind of responsibility that you pay.
Yes.
That you owe.
At least once in a month, I get to meet my neighbors.
It's okay.
I want to come back and insist on the point of, if you provide the services as you're supposed to, then the citizens are likely to live by those ideals. If we ask ourselves the whys, why is it that you go into a certain estate or near a certain estate and you find this heap of garbage next to something that used to look like a garbage bin provided by the county? When is the last time, in those early years, you used to have the NCC garbage bins distributed to homes, distributed to estates? When is the last time that was done? Where is the next garbage collection point? If you go to Marikiti today and you find a small garbage thingy, it's full. How often is it emptied? Now, if you are providing those services, if you're able to provide those services, that it tells you that the reason why that garbage bin is full is because somebody knew their responsibility. My responsibility is to throw this in that garbage bin. Now, you are not doing your job, and that's why that thing is filling up. You're not doing your job, and that's why that pile of garbage is actually growing on a daily basis. If you came and collected it the first day, people would not come and throw again there. People start throwing because they see, okay, so this is where we are throwing our takataka. Throw. If it starts by the government doing what it's supposed to do, then it becomes easier for you to tell people
The
now.
general actually has started doing something. Remember, Nduh was mentioning to us the other day how it is people who live in a certain area of Nairobi who had not seen water for God knows how many decades and a half.
Yep.
Suddenly turned on the taps and water flowed through. Okay? We all know that part of the problem with water distribution had to do with this famous word that we like using to describe this nefarious group of individuals who keep preying on us. I'm going to give a hint. It begins with the C.
Cartel.
See, 10 out of 10.
Thank you very much.
The water cartels need the taps to run dry for them to be able to do their business. We have a situation where, as you say, the county has licensed garbage collectors, all right? Garbage collectors aside, this is now just ensuring once in a month that you participate in this process. It's an eye-opening experience because it brings you into contact with the garbage that you particularly probably did not contribute to. Okay. However, what we know about experience is this, my friend. When it is levied on everyone within this county, everyone, then on that one day once a month, we are all on the same footing. That one day in a month, no shops are open before 11 or 10 or whatever it is they're going to do. And you know this. On that day, even if you think you don't want to get up, there'll be some busybody neighbor who will come and knock on your door. Okay? Now, you may not particularly like it. So if you put this I don't like it mindset just aside for a while and look at perhaps the benefit. That's why I keep talking about I will get to know my neighbors. There are benefits that can accrue from this. But, Eric, you do have a point. Everyone has to play their part.
Let's go back to the phone lines. Steve in Nairobi, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone.
How are you doing?
Fine, thank you.
All right.
Now, I just want to make a contribution. I think the discussion we are talking about, the general trying to put us in line as it is in Rwanda. I think it can work, but it will not work. The reason why I think it will not work is because we have probably the likes of you and myself. We grew up in an era where things were put in order. But right now, there is no order. Somebody just, like for example, in Outer Ring Road, it was done nicely, but somebody will, collect trash or garbage, wherever he has collected them, and come and dump them at the center of that highway. So when we start that, we want to clean, and we want to or rather put that in us as a society. I think it needs to start from school. If you're not taught in school how to cross the road properly, you will not. You'll cross wherever where there's no zebra, pedestrian crossing. So I think what we can do probably is I'm putting myself in the people who would support him. But I'm not optimistic. I've gotten to a point whereby I'm more pessimistic about anything government says, because Karisa Maitha cleaned Nairobi, or rather removed the hawkers from the center, the CBD, but now they're back again. So, I mean, I don't know where it's going to lead to, but I'll support him either way.
Okay. Thank you, Steve. Trevor, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
We're well, thank you.
My contribution to this topic is, first of all, Eric, you had alluded to the point that the major needs to enforce a law, I think, before now implementing whatever he has said, yes? So my question is now, for example, would you rather your mother canes you before giving you a warning, like I'm just caning you, which is now the law, for a mistake you've done that you're not very sure you've done, then I tell you, oh, by the way, this is the mistake you did. For me, I think initially before, when I was very young, I think there are times when water hydrants were working and the streets were being cleaned. I believe because people want order, and the Major General is rightly placed to give orders, probably he can create like a radius. For example, say radius within Nairobi. He says from now henceforth, there will be no littering. If you litter, this happens. Like in India, there's a clip I watched a while back. They had this perennial behavior of guys just urinating all over, and somebody took it to themselves. Took a water bowser and put a water cannon on top of it, and they were just patrolling the streets. So you just stand somewhere and start urinating, and the water bowser was just passing through. The guy sprays you So feel the same way the environment is feeling. So you tell me you did that, somebody saw you, and then another person, the grapevine, you told them, if you meet in Nairobi,
Full
the
stop.
current will really spray you. You and your suit, you're sprayed at 8 a.m. in the morning, and they're going for a meeting. The next time you'll refuse. You're littering the streets, somebody grabs you and tell you, so since you're littering the streets, from where you're standing, for the next 200 meters, I want you to sweep and collect garbage and dump it there. The next time you'll be walking around with litter in your hand, you'll put it in your pocket before you. And then let's say you just say from Jogoo Road all the way to Huruhairo, this is restricted.
True.
And then you expand it, pole, you expand, you say now you're in Jogoo Road, now let's go to Hamza. Let's expand all the way to Outer Ring. You see now the radius is expanding slowly.
Yes.
In the long run, you'll have implemented it. But if you just say wholesome, now everybody Sato, I'll just sit in my house because, hey, my compound is clean and I'm not responsible for what the other person is doing out there. So if I instill it, pole, if I come to town every day and I know when I'm in town I have to be clean, automatically it will be instilled in me that everywhere I go I need to maintain cleanliness. Because
cleanliness.
I cannot be bipolar in my cleanliness, I say.
Thank you very much, Trevor.
Yeah.
Collective responsibility, really. If you think about it. I mean, he mentioned an era where it was normal for your mother to mete out some disciplinary action. Usually, the tool of choice was a cane. There was some
or a sleeper,
yes,
or a mwiko.
But an instrument. But there are parents who understood the concept of collective responsibility, and the mistake of one would guarantee that everybody was punished, even if you weren't in the compound when it happened. So, and it's only when you're older that you realize that what was being instilled in you works, because you find that you'd have no difficulties talking to your siblings. It was actually enforced.
You must talk.
Oh, you're going to talk.
Beth Kimani says, hey, Sherik, let's work with what we have. We Kenyans are such complainers. If you wait for Nairobi County to clean up, we will not progress. Let's try, and if it works, it's a win for everyone. Let's try what? Beth? Let's try what? Let's try
this new suggestion by the
let's try getting up every week.
The Major General has suggested.
This,
And remember, it isn't law
Can we
yet,
try with him doing his work?
But the man has already
And if it
shown
works,
what
it
he can
works.
do, for heaven's sake.
No, he hasn't shown me that he can provide dustbins.
That water thing. I mean, that thing is, I'm not waiting for another miracle. That one is a big miracle.
That's a big one.
It's a big one.
Nicholas Kipkoech says, if the same government is willing to provide gumboots and gloves as seen with the general, then it's a good idea. Putting in conditionalities. Ian Moreithi in Kariako, good morning.
Good morning, the team.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Ian from Kariako. One of the markets that the county government has failed to actually put a waste disposal unit. We literally throw remains of leather, remains of fabric onto the road. So the bill, the proposer is proposing is as useless as it won't help, because the tax which this market pays to the county government actually does not help in any way.
Are you saying that there is no waste disposal place at the Kariako market? This is a very old market. It must have had at some point.
We literally throw it onto the road.
There are trucks from the county that come, periodically. Maybe they don't come daily. Do they come even like once in 2 weeks or once a month to collect that?
They will come once a month. But is it the road made to dispose waste?
No, they are not.
Exactly.
So what would you like to see happen if you say that him coming up with this law is as useless as anything? What did you like? What did you suggest? What did you tell him?
They would better start with the basics. For such a market, they should put a container-sized trash bin, so that it can hold the amount of waste you produce here at the market.
All right. Good suggestion. Asante sana, Ian Mureithi. Thank you very much for speaking to us this morning.
Good day.
Good day to you too. Coming to the end of the show, just because I am the one who's really going off on this. Let me just say this: it's okay. We can have one day for cleanliness, but let's start with, can the government do some of the basics? This is a market. Provide a dustbin. Then go and tell Kina Ian Mureithi, all right, so this is where you shall put the trash, and then once every month you shall be cleaning the area where you work as you take the trash to this particular one place.
Right.
So right now the area is completely dirty because the county is not doing what it's supposed to be doing. That's my point. Coming to the end of the show, today's problem.
If you do not travel, you will marry your own sister.
Okay. And whose sister do they want you to marry?
Well, clearly somebody else's. This saying makes sense in communities where marrying of blood relatives is actually considered taboo.
Yep.
Yes, and the only way you can get to know your relatives, to put it very simply, if you visit. And visiting involves traveling.
Yeah.
So, if you do not bother to take that little step, then you will not know your relatives. So the possibility of being engulfed in this taboo becomes a reality. Very simple.
Very good point. Thank you very much for listening to The Situation Room today. Nduh Okoh, say goodbye and what we expect.
All right, so enjoying some music this morning from 10 o'clock all the way till 3. And then Monique will come and drive you home on the Spice Drive with lots of great music. The adults in the room, which is Emmanuel, Eric, and Barbara, will take you through the evening with the adults in the room.
And then
there'll be more music
and then
for you after that. And then in the next 18 or so hours, we shall be back.
All right. So see you in the next 18 or so hours. Have a lovely day. Good morning. It's 10 o'clock.